Wake up, 49ers fans. Day 2 of the NFL draft. Rounds 2 and 3 come up later this afternoon. Happy Ricky Pearsall Day to everyone, and welcome to Wake Up with Damon and Larry. Like and subscribe if you would. Both of our channels were popping yesterday. We certainly appreciate it. Hit notify and you won't miss a thing that we do. Larry, good morning. We have both slept on the concept of Ricky Pearsall being a 49er. I've watched some more videos, gotten to know the player and him a little bit better thanks to a Kay Adams interview. And I'm feeling a little bit better about the whole thing than I was last night. I still don't know if it meets the criteria of being the right fit, but if he's a good player, doesn't matter where you pick him. He's on your team. Purdy to Pearsall, touchdown. You won the Super Bowl. Congratulations.
Well, I mean, you know, there are people. He's A.J. Jenkins. No, he's not. He's not A.J. Jenkins. You know, I was listening to Greg Cosell this morning. He's a big fan of Pearsall. You know, there's a number of people. C.J. Stroud is a big fan of Pearsall. Pearsall is, you know, a much better athlete than, you know, people see small white receiver and go, oh, man, and the limitations and this and that. This guy's incredibly athletic. And when you dig deeper, you can see, you know, he can play outside. He can play inside. He's not just a slot receiver. He's got a 42-inch vertical. He high points the ball. He caught nearly 70% of his targets. He only really had one drop all year. And, you know, he stayed at ASU for 3 years and played with Ayuk in 2019, 97th percentile of vertical leap. So 4.41 in the 40. He's got that short area burst and he's got great ball skills. And even on a Florida team where there were some really bad quarterbacks, this guy really did a nice job. And as far as his usage, he was used 51% in the slot, but he lined up outside, you know, 50% of the time. So, that's that, you know, so he wasn't just, he's not just some slot receiver. He can play outside as well.
You can line him up anywhere.
You can line him up anywhere. He had an 87% success rate versus man-to-man coverage. So it's not like, you know, I know people are saying, oh, the scouting report saying he can't play man. 87% success rate against man-to-man coverage. He's got elite hands. He had a 64.7% contested catch rate, which is pretty damn good. He definitely, when you watch the film, plays stronger than the 190 pounds. He looks like a guy who could be a playmaker in the slot, really tough. He blocks. What I did see when I looked at the next gen stats, Damon, 45% of his routes were in breaking routes. So, you know, in a lot of ways, this is a perfect guy for Brock Purdy. This is not a go pattern guy. This is a quarterback's best friend. 74% success rate on post patterns. So he's really good in the middle of the field. And to me, I thought it was, you know, with A.D. Mitchell and Ladd McConkey, I thought it was kind of a luxury pick. But this guy's a really effective receiver. His 20-yard split is excellent. His 3-cone drill of 6.64 is beyond elite. That's like 98th percentile, which shows short area quickness and change of direction, which is a lot of, you know, that's a lot of the job description. So, I mean, the highlight reel is amazing. I wouldn't suggest him, you know, showing his body like that to defensive linebackers and safeties in the NFL the way he did in the SEC, where he took some big hits. But this kid's tough. He's tough. He can block. He can make plays in the middle of the field. He's, you know, can high point the ball. There's a lot to like. He's, you know, everything that we said last night in real time, I feel even stronger about. You know, I told you last night, this guy's almost a perfect fit for Brock Purdy because Purdy makes his living in the middle of the field. And this is a very refined receiver. Now, I thought Xavier Legette, A.D. Mitchell, Ladd McConkey were a little higher end. So to me, it's still kind of baffling that you would take kind of a first-round pick, use a first-round pick on what I would kind of view as a third receiver. But maybe he's not going to be the third receiver. And according to some reports, we may see Deebo Samuel dealt tonight for a second and a third. So tune in. It's going to be an exciting day.
I've always thought that one of the real successful elements of the marriage that my wife and I have is we met each other at the perfect time. Like, we both fit, our lifestyles fit together right at the perfect time. Had we met 5 years earlier, I don't know if it would have been as obvious as hey, we really fit together. And I guess that's my problem with the whole Pearsall pick as it stands, just in the vacuum of him being added to this team. Will he help them win the Super Bowl? Will he be on the field enough to help them win the Super Bowl? Now, if you're telling me Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel's traded today, obviously he just moved up that depth chart one whole notch. So his chances of being on the field for 600-700 snaps increase if there is a trade of a wide receiver today. If there isn't, it feels like they've added a third guy to compete for their fourth wide receiver spot. And I just don't know if that is exactly what's going to get them over the last push over that Super Bowl hill. I'm also concerned that the Kansas City Chiefs got aggressive for a wide receiver that a lot of people did have attached to the 49ers. You know, Xavier Worthy, Chiefs weren't waiting around. They jumped right over the Niners and a few other teams to grab him. I think that the recent history of wide receiver evaluation will tell you Andy Reid knows more about what he's doing than what the 49ers have. But again, we're not going to hold any past mistakes against Ricky Pearsall. The fit for the moment is what made me go, more than anything else. And honestly, you know who should be, I think, the single biggest fan of the Ricky Pearsall pick? Jake Brindle. I think Jake Brindle, Larry, you know, when he saw that name come off the board, he went, whoo, because I really did think that Zach Frazier, the kid from Oregon, a couple of what people say are blue chip, going to have 8 to 12 year long NFL career centers, were just tailor-made for the pick and the moment and the need that the Niners all have. So that's why I was left so surprised about all this. Ricky Pearsall could be a fabulous player, but does he fit? Will Shanahan allow him to be part of this year's game plan in his rookie season? I'll tell you right now, Brandon Ayuk in his rookie season was part of the game plan almost by default because everyone else sucked on that team. Kyle was totally turning it over. And, Brandon Ayuk had 60 catches for 748 yards during his rookie season. Will Pearsall's numbers be even half of that at the end of his rookie season?
Well, I mean, they're totally different players. I mean, Brandon's physically better than this guy. This guy's more refined than Brandon was coming out of ASU. I mean, my the thing I don't like about Pearsall is that his burst coming out of his release is just okay. I don't see him, running through arm tackles. The foot speed is only middle of the road. He 4.41's not slow, but it's not burning fast. Cornerbacks, I think, are going to be able to run up and down the field with him. I don't know if he's going to be able to separate. Can he separate? His separation is all based on his route running and his instincts, not his explosive body movement. And in the NFL, sometimes you just got to use that explosive athleticism to separate. So I'm a little concerned there. But, I mean, if you go back and look at this kid's track record, he starts off at Arizona State. They had problems there. He was a full-time starter in his third year with the Sun Devils. He led ASU in receiving yards with 580 and then transferred to Florida and then led the Gators in receiving yards in back-to-back years, 2022 and 2023. There's no doubt that Pearsall can track the ball in the air, and he's got great, really puts in a lot of work as a downfield blocker, really has put in a ton of work on his route running, and the refinement is clear. So he's got good instincts for finding the soft spot in the zone. The question is, can he get open against, tight man-to-man coverage? He's got a high football IQ. This, to me, one of the things that I love about him is he can put moves together and lose guys. He's got great footwork. As I said last night to you, more of an effective player than an awesome player. I mean, Xavier Legette is 30, 40 pounds heavier and faster and went one pick later. I really like the idea of the upside of Legette, but I mean, clearly Shanahan is thinking ball skills, and that's probably why they're going to move on from Debo. It's probably why they like Pearsall. It's probably why, they want guys who are going to catch the ball. They're not as worried about the athleticism. They're more worried about the hands. I mean, that's what Trent Taylor is as a return guy. That's what this guy is as a receiver. I still got to see the rest of this draft shake out before we can really get a feel for it. And especially if there's a deal involving Debo. And I'll be surprised. I mean, the Niners will have to take a cap hit if they move Debo, but it sounds like they might be willing to do exactly that.
That's what Mike Silver's talking about, and we will talk about that, what the move-up options could be. How did Debo find himself in a conversation he was just assured that he would be left out of not even 72 hours ago publicly by the 49ers? So what has happened there? And, the Pearsall pick might look different based on the moves that we see today over the weekend. And, it'll feel a little bit different if there are connect the dot moves to it. I'll tell you what made me feel a little bit different about the Ricky Pearsall pick was we all know how demanding Kyle is on his wide receivers. He not just only expects them to be physically gifted, but he needs them to be smart as well. Really smart guys. And Larry, when we're done today, I urge you to go to Kay Adams's YouTube channel and look at the 10-minute conversation that she had with Ricky Pearsall. I'll bet you this guy absolutely crushed the interview. Absolutely crushed it. He's handsome. He's got a great vocabulary. He smiles when he talks. He's got a sense of humor. He's got a personality. He seems to be well-adjusted. He's self-effacing. Like all of the indications of that's a bright light bulb that you could pick up from talking to somebody, you pick up in this conversation that he has with Kay Adams. So maybe that's another, separation point, something, you don't see a guy's intelligence on, in the game tape very often. And so maybe that was the difference between taking Pearsall instead of, Legette, who I'm not saying isn't all of those things as well, but I haven't seen the Legette Kay Adams one-on-one. I've seen the Ricky Pearsall one. He's an impressive kid. So,
it's also, they're receivers. It's about catching the ball. I mean, that's what I like about Pearsall is he had the fourth lowest drop rate in college football last season for players that saw 100+ targets. He only had a 2.74 drop percentage, 4 drops on 146 targets. So the ball skills are clearly there. Clearly there. Pro Football Focus credited him with 2 drops. Shanahan raved about his ability to make contested catches in his hands, and you can see why. He was 93rd percentile in the 3-cone, 97th percentile in the vertical. So he's a better athlete than just some small little white guy who can't get open. This guy actually has some athleticism to him. There was a scout who was quoted as saying, tough with great hands, smooth and has a quick release. He attacks and goes up for the ball. He's not afraid to make contested catches and take the hit. He also is a relentless blocker. Makes sense. He's in San Francisco.
Fire pick. Can't lie. That is a direct quote from Brandon Ayuk, who texted that to John Lynch not too long after the pick. Apparently, Pearsall said that he's talked with Brandon Ayuk. I got off the phone with him before I heard here on this Zoom call that he was just congratulating me on getting the call, telling me over and over, "You're a first rounder, man. Soak it up. You deserve it." All that work that you put in. So Brandon Ayuk is, he likes the pick. Now, I don't know if he likes that pick because he thinks it's going to be a great teammate, or this is the pick that's going to allow me to get traded and make the money that I want to make. I don't know what his reasons are, but
they're former teammates.
Right. And that's the thing. They did cross over at ASU. There's an Arizona connection there with Brock Purdy, obviously. Just in terms of, I think they played against each other in high school. They know each other. And obviously Kismet with Purdy is paramount to this working. And it's going to be paramount to his snap count and how much he's allowed to be out there. And does he beat Juwan Jennings? Does Ricky Bell or, Danny Gray just fail to live up to any expectations? Trent Taylor, maybe the 49ers only see
Ronnie Bell, you mean Ronnie Bell, yeah.
Ronnie Bell. Sorry, I got Ricky's on my mind. We're going to do a segment about Ricky Henderson later today, just because, Larry.
Talking third person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Pearsall had the best 3-cone drill. Number 2 on that list, by the way, was Luke McCaffrey. Thought that was interesting. But he had a better 3-cone drill than Rome Odunze, than Troy Franklin, than Jalen McMillan. There's some athleticism here. And now, the question of the day is, are the Niners going to move Deebo Samuel? And Josina Anderson is reporting the Patriots are showing interest. There's talk that maybe the Niners would want a second and a third for Deebo. I don't know what they could realistically hope to get. I don't know how realistic it is that he moves, but Mike Silver seems to think it's very viable. The Niners would have to eat $21 million in dead money if they did move Deebo today, but they would save $7 million against the cap this season if they moved him. So, it's interesting. I mean, according to Silver, he says, given that the 49ers took a receiver, trading Brandon Ayuk or possibly Deebo Samuel is very much in play as we head into tomorrow. That was last night. NBC Sports Bay Area says Deebo Samuel reportedly is, quote, likely to be the odd man out after the 49ers Ricky Pearsall selection, and a trade could materialize quickly. So a lot to watch for here in the next 10 hours. On that front for sure. And by the way, Pro Football Focus's player comp to Ricky Pearsall, Damon, guess who it was?
Was it another white receiver?
Yeah, Julian Edelman.
Okay.
Now that, to me, Julian Edelman was uniquely tough. I think tougher than this kid, but this kid has better ball skills than Julian Edelman for sure.
I mean, let's see how many Super Bowls he wins before we start talking about that. I haven't seen him catch an NFL pass against an NFL defense, not once, and neither is he. So we don't know what he's going to be. But the projections are he could be something, and the 49ers obviously evaluated him as someone that they were interested in. And congratulations and welcome to San Francisco, Ricky Pearsall. All eyes will be on you, young man, as you enter your career. The next pick on the board for the 49ers, second-round pick coming in at number 31. It is number 63 overall. And like you said, a couple of wide receivers could be in play in terms of Ayuk or Deebo being traded to move up. So just simplest question possible. Larry, do you think the 49ers pick at 63 or before 63 today?
I think they pick before 63. I do think that they'll wind up making some kind of a trade and getting higher in round 2. And then it's a matter of what are they going for? Are they going for that offensive lineman right there? Are they going for a corner? Are they going for a defensive lineman? And to me, it seems like the defensive line is where the best talent is.
Everything that we listed as their needs remains, right? And there's probably more corners on this board still than anyone expected, more defensive linemen on the board than anyone expected. What a wild first round just in terms of offensive priority we just saw. The first 14 picks in the NFL draft were all offensive players. 6, of course, were quarterbacks, 6 of the top 12. That's a record. The first time since 1983 we've had 6 taken in the first round. We've never seen 6 taken in the top 12. Leatu Latu was the first defensive player taken out of UCLA with pick number 15 to the Colts. And
which is such a departure from what we've seen in the past where the defensive athletes go in the top 5.
Yeah, it's the first time that 14 picks in a row have ever gone all offense at any point in the draft. There's never been 14 offensive players taken mid-5th round in a row, much less to start a draft. So that's what makes it pretty, remarkable in terms of a historically different, significant draft. And, of the 6 quarterbacks taken, math says more than half will not be getting that second contract to be a franchise quarterback with the team. So there's risk everywhere. There's no one who had a draft that is assured to do anything. We will find out when these guys really start earning their grades about midway through next year, when we're seeing who the rookie impact players are and who's even getting on the field. And again, that brings me back to a concern that I have about Pearsall. But again, the original concern about Pearsall could be alleviated if either Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel is involved today. How do you think Deebo found himself on the trade block after being assured publicly by the Niners that he would not be included in any business around this draft? What do you think changed, if anything?
Well, that's a good question. I just think that his health and Shanahan's desire to have receivers that have better ball skills going forward, I think, have changed the dynamic a little bit. Also, the presence of Christian McCaffrey does a lot of the things that Deebo did in this offense. And also, I just think it's, the handwriting's on the wall. I mean, he's gotten out of shape. He's had injuries. He runs through people. His career promises to be short. He probably only has 2 more really, really good years left. I think he makes a lot of money. They can't afford to commit $60 million to just wide receivers. So, I mean, it's the cap. I mean, all these things I think are factors here. It is interesting. Mike Silver reported late last night that a trade potentially could come together quickly, perhaps before the start of today's second round, or possibly while a potential trade partner is on the clock. And so the Niners are believed to be seeking second and third round selections for Deebo. So I'll say this. I mean, I didn't realize that was an option. I thought they had pretty much said that Deebo was going to be here and that the cap hit was too bad, or too punitive, I should say, to make a move. But if you had told me, in the last week, well, they could potentially trade Ayuk on day one for a first, or they're shopping Deebo for a second and a third, I would have said I'd rather move Deebo for a second and a third. I think most people would. So I'm not saying that, Deebo's a great Niner. He's a tone setter. Those are hard to find. It really is. His swagger gives them swagger. So, it's not like this is not a significant loss. But if you could turn him into a second and a third round pick today and then hit on those picks, that could be a very positive situation for the Niners, especially if it enables them to keep Ayuk.
I was surprised that they passed on Cooper DeJean. I was surprised that they passed on Johnny Newton. I do think that the 49ers need to add an offensive lineman, maybe even more than they need that next defensive lineman or secondary player, though. I do think that they've got I think that they've got either Cooper DeJean or a center or interior lineman on their mind if they were to make a trade of either Ayuk or Deebo to move up. I'm just going by what we saw, what they need. And
yeah, but I mean, there's all kinds of interpretations. I mean, I think they need a defensive lineman. I mean, I'm not convinced that Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins are going to be enough. You lost Eric Armstead. You pride yourself on what you get done up front. I think they need that other interior player who can put heat on the quarterback. I'm not loving some of their defensive line looks.
Well,
so,
and, you got to win your own division if you're doing anything. I mean, technically you don't have to. You could be a wild card team, but you know what I'm saying? You want to win your division. Just look at what the rest of the NFC West did in this draft in its first round. You got the Cardinals, who have Marvin Harrison Jr. I thought the Cardinals had the best first round of the draft, by the way. Cardinals got Marvin Harrison Jr., who might be pound for pound the best player on the board at any position, and Darius Robinson, who, pound for pound, an awful lot of people say could have the most upside potential, if I can go Jay Billis NBA draft lingo on you. Darius Robinson, the edge from Mizzou, and Marvin Harrison. But again, That is pressure on the Niners offensive line with Darius Robinson. You look at what the Rams did. Florida State defensive end Jared Verse. Seattle, they're coming right up the center gap with Byron Murphy, the Texas defensive tackle. So everyone in the NFC West took a defensive lineman in the first round. That to me screams you need another offensive lineman. You got to improve that offensive line for the 49ers.
No question. They gotta get some offensive linemen, and they've got to be good. I would love Frazier, but Jackson Powers Johnson is a nice answer. Bo
The reason why
Limmer
we
from
fell in love
Arkansas.
with Frazier is because Jackson Powers Johnson was, going to be off the board, right? Wasn't he supposed to be the first center up? And this was, you turned your attention.
He may still be the first center up. I mean, you never know. But I mean, I guess Graham Barton's already been taken. I think he's kind of a center. So, but yeah, I mean, there's some good interior players at the top of round 2, and the Niners don't, they probably won't last until the Niners pick. If the Niners wait till the end of the round, if the Niners wait till the end of the round to make their pick, they still could be looking at some really good linebacker options, some really good defensive tackle options. I could see them go safety. I could see them go corner. There's definitely some, and be out beyond the offensive line. But yeah, I still think there's, Javon Foster to me is the best value of the offensive line as far as what he can do and where he's going to be picked. Supposedly he's going to be picked late day 2, early day 3. He would be my choice for offensive tackle, just because he's got experience on the left side, experience on the right side, really strong hands, really, really long arms, played in the SEC, looked great in the one-on-ones in Mobile. I think Javon Foster, if I'm looking for a tackle right now, to me, him and Blake Fisher from Notre Dame are probably the best value. And I like them both better than some of the guys that already went, guys like Jordan Morgan and, some of the guys that will go at the top of round 2. So
6 tackles in the first 20 picks, Larry. 6 tackles.
I mean, that's typically how it goes. That's why the Niners at 31, I think we're realistic about, people saying they got to go tackle at 31. No, you don't. What? So you can get the 8th best tackle, just because you need one. This draft is really, really deep with offensive tackles. And to me, the sweet spot is more in, round 3 and round 4, as far as, where you can get a tackle, offensive tackle. To me, I would be thinking solely about Michael Hall, Rororo, Johnny Newton, some of those defensive tackles in this next pick, because to me, Mason Smith from LSU, I mean, there are some phenomenal, because there was such a run on offensive tackles and there was such a run on quarterbacks. The entire top tier of the defensive tackle class is all sitting right there still.
Hey, we are a half an hour into this live stream. Welcome to Wake Up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. Join us today at the Dubliner. I even wore the T-shirt here, Larry. I'm rocking Dubliner gear. Dubliner
Nice.
West Portal. Let's see how good you are at drinking a Guinness. Larry and I would both love to watch you drink a Guinness a little bit later today at the Dubliner West Portal. We'll be there starting at 4 o'clock. We're going to be upstairs in that pool room doing some live streams together, recording some videos together. We are going to be breaking in live with draft picks or trades or business around the 49ers once the second round begins. But if you'd actually like to come on out and hang out, come on out to the Dubliner and West Portal. If you're in San Francisco today, got a Muni stop right in front there. It's easy. It's easy to get to the Dubliner. So we hope to see you a little bit later on today. In the meantime, if you can't make it, you want to support the channels, like and subscribe. That's all we ask to both of these channels. We got an awful lot planned for this upcoming football season, and I think we might do a better job than I don't know, a couple of radio stations in this town, Larry. Just a hunch. I'm into it. I know you're into it, and here we go. Let's see. Do you think the Chiefs trading up with the Bills to take Xavier Worthy made the 49ers war room clutch up a little?
I think the Niners had interest in Xavier Worthy, no doubt. But I mean, if you really think about it, Xavier Worthy is not as good a fit for the Niners as Pearsall. Here's why.
But he would have been the difference maker. I mean, he would have been the one of the things that they don't already have, right?
He's a great go pattern sideline guy. But I mean, that's not what Brock Purdy does. Brock Purdy is not aired out down the left sideline to a streaking Xavier Worthy. That's not typically what he does. It would have added an element to their offense in the vertical passing game. It would have created a ton of space underneath. But you still got to move the chains. Pearsall is a guy with ball skills who operates in the middle of the field, who really does fit Brock Purdy, especially because he's refined and he can work back to the quarterback. I'm not saying that Worthy's not better. Worthy could have a much better career than Pearsall, but they're totally different. Worthy has iffy balls, by comparison to Pearsall, iffy ball skills and a limited route tree and durability issues himself at 164 pounds. What he's got that everybody can point to is the 4.2 140 that, you can see, and it's very tangible. And you can see that home run ability on the field, and people would have been super excited by Xavier Worthy. But as far as effectiveness and fit with your quarterback and in your offense, I think Pearsall is better from the standpoint of he can run more routes. He can work the middle of the field. And I think there is potential. And I said it yesterday, there is potential that once Brock Purdy and this receiver get on the same page, that it's going to be that this could be a prolific combination because of Brock's accuracy and this guy's radius and ball skills, and Shanahan's ability to put him anywhere. Shanahan says he can play anywhere. He can play inside, outside, all based on who else is out there with him. So I love the effectiveness of this pick, but I was, I'll just say this. I was looking at one of the reports and it said NFL scouts and coaches will love his toughness, and they'll love the fact that he can line up anywhere in the formation, allowing for creativity with his alignments and play design. Quarterbacks will love his reckless abandon and his ability to fight for the 50-50 balls. But this last sentence to me says it all. His lack of speed limits his ceiling, but Pearsall has the traits to be a solid role player. And that's what I see as well. His lack of speed makes it so this guy's never going to be your number one. But in this offense with Kyle, with Purdy, this guy could be a very, very effective role player for them. But he's a role player, and he's a first-round role player. And that always makes me a little uncomfortable.
Let's say Ayuk were to be traded. The debate about him being a legitimate number one is one that I'm sure is had in a lot of NFL chats. He's certainly the Niners' number one, but would he be, a number one as opposed to Justin Jefferson? The answer is no. So if you trade Ayuk, you have no number one wide receiver on your team because Debo ain't no number one.
Yeah, I'm at this point. I think the shift has gone from trading Ayuk to trading Debo. And based on what I'm reading and hearing, it sounds like Ayuk is texting with them and commenting with them, and I don't know. I mean,
right. There's more warm and fuzzies in communication being reported in the last 12 hours than there was in the previous 12 days.
It just seems like it's set up for Ayuk to stay and for Debo to go.
I think,
and to me, I think they're going to draft another receiver. I think believe it or not, they're going to add another one. Maybe it's Luke McCaffrey. Maybe it's Brendan Rice. Maybe it's a burner, at the end of the draft, like a Tyler Harrell or Anthony Gould or somebody like that.
What about Keon Coleman? Have you got any from Florida State guys?
I mean, Keon Coleman, though, is going to go soon here. I don't think they're going to go back-to-back wide receivers. So Keon Coleman, Malachi Corley, I would say probably not. But you never know. I mean, the Niners have three picks in the fourth round. They've got a third. They've got a second. There's talk that they want to move Debo today for a second and a third, which would give them 2 2s and 2 3s and 3 4s. I mean, that's a lot. You got 7 players in the next 3 rounds. And I think one of those players could be another receiver.
They still need some safety help. Jaden Hicks, Washington State, is a player to check out.
Oh, he's a thumper.
Yeah, I think that he could maybe be, a second round selection again, especially if they have multiple second round picks because they swing a deal that they have not swung yet.
Malik Mustafa, I think, is the guy that they've looked at, and he's a hard hitter, like a John Lynch. I could see him. I could definitely see Sione Vaki in round 5, 6, or 7.
I hope it's Sione Vaki. We got an inline to Sione Vaki. It's your best friend, Larry.
Yeah, no, seriously. Me and Sione are tight. No, but I mean, Sione's agent says they're showing a lot of interest there. He could be one of the safeties they take on day 3. So I'm eager to see the Pearsall. The one thing about Pearsall is I'd rather err with a football player than a traits-filled monster who lacks some football player. You know what I'm saying? And Pearsall is a football player who lacks some of the traits to be a star, but he's a football player. And so you've got a guy with ball skills. You got a guy who knows how to run routes. You have a receiver that's polished. Is he high end? Can he get it? Can he break tackles? Or is he just going to be effective? That's the question.
Well, look, maybe that high end will develop. You get guys on an NFL roster with an NFL nutritionist and an NFL strength and conditioning coach. And, guys, look at how much better Brandon Ayuk is 4 years into his career than when we first met him, right? So, the Niners do a good job developing guys. And, I mean, they've got a stud team. This is a really good football team. I just think they need a little bit more beef. The first pick in this draft didn't address beef. There's 9 more picks to come, and maybe even more than that, with a couple of trades that now feel like they're officially in the wind or could happen. It's going to be a fascinating day. I think for the 49ers, Larry, day 2 is the day that is going to affect whether or not they win the Super Bowl more than day 1 did. How about that?
Give me Zach Frazier, give me Michael Hall, and I'll be very happy.
It would be a nice Hall.
Oh, I mean, that would be incredible. Frazier and Hall would be my dream day 2.
So I remember you, me, Dan talking last night about how, anyone who tries to grade a pick today, kind of a douche.
Well, I mean, that's just the nature. That's just the nature. Everybody wants a reaction.
I know. I get it.
It's
putting
not
too much stock into any of these trades. Like like texting your buddies, like, oh, my draft pick got a B+ and yours got a C-.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I view this as? This is literally no different than the grades that you get when you draft your fantasy team. I've won my fantasy league a couple of years. My teams always get some C- grade for the draft.
Right.
And then because I'm taking rookies and I'm projecting, and rookies usually have, lower grades in fantasy, but it's a grade. I mean, take it for what it is. It's one person's opinion. It's hardly written in stone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the other thing too. It's kind of like Manager of the Year award. It's like, if your premise is wrong, your conclusion's wrong. If who wins the Manager of the Year, well, it's the manager of the team who nobody saw coming, who then it can't be that their players are good. It has to be the manager somehow magically pulled all the strings. Or it could just be that you misinterpreted what kind of talent there was on that roster. But no, we say what we think, and then when a team does more than we think, well, it can't be the players. So it has to be the manager. So he's the Manager of the Year. So that's why none of the great coaches in the league usually win Coach of the Year, because it's got to be premises. You overachieved. And like the Texans, I think, had an incredible offseason personnel-wise last year. They did an incredible job. And I said that I thought D'Amico was going to be a Coach of the Year candidate. They were my surprise team earlier this year, and it was all because of the personnel. And then, but because they won 3 games the year before, and everybody looked at their personnel and didn't think Tank Dell was any good, didn't think several of these rookies were any good. Now it's like D'Amico must be coach of the year. Really? Or is it that they've added a ton of talent and people just don't know the names?
Right. I mean, Andy Reid, based on the talent of Patrick Mahomes, will never be considered for coach of anything anymore. The Chiefs would literally have to go undefeated for Andy Reid to even crack a top 3 coach of the year vote. He still would be disregarded because of the skill on the team. So yeah, it's always weird.
Shanahan's never winning that award.
No. Well, he won it once, right? Didn't he already win it?
Well,
won it in 2019.
Yeah, but he's never winning that award going forward because it's like the Niners are viewed as too talented. So they're like, if they win, well, look at all those name quality players. They should have won,
Anyways, like I was saying, anyone who tries to put a definitive grave on any of this it's a little bit of nonsense. And having said all that, Larry, who do you think got the worst grade of the first round? Who is the one pick, the one fit, the one circumstance that just made you go, don't like that?
The Green Bay Packers, who I thought had a phenomenal draft the year before. But Green Bay, I mean, there's no question it's Green Bay. Green Bay had the 25th pick overall, and they took Jordan Morgan from Arizona. And Jordan Morgan is a short-armed tackle who projects inside, who doesn't handle power well. So that's not a good combo. You know what I mean? It's like I watched this guy there are a lot of people liked him. But to me, if you really look at what's his pro position, he's going to play inside. And then if you watch his weakness, it was that you could bull rush him with regularity and with relative ease. And now you've got a short-armed, underpowered tackle projecting to guard. And I mean, he'll play there. He'll be on their team, but he's not going to be a superstar. But that's a low-end offensive line pick when there was all kinds of better guys available. So I think Green Bay had the worst pick.
So I'm not attaching the pick was bad, but the fit being catastrophically destructive internally, possibly. I think the biggest mistake of the first round is the Falcons taking Michael Penix. I really do.
Like, see what they said today?
What
Did you see what they said? That he might sit as many as 4 years behind Kirk Cousins. He's going to be like 30.
Yeah, he'll be 28 years old at the end of Kirk Cousins' contract. So there's that. The fact that
but he's a good player, though. He's a great player.
Look, he is. But here's the thing. You brought in Kirk Cousins to be the stabilizing presence in the entire locker room. Cousins will now set the tone in this locker room. And he does a good job at that. Like, did you watch any of the QB1 things on Netflix or whatever that was?
Yeah.
Like Cousins,
when he wasn't whining about being hit.
Little bit of a goody two-shoes guy, but
he's a good dude. I've interviewed him a couple times.
Guys like Kirk Cousins.
He's a good guy. He's solid. I interviewed him face to face before 2 different Super Bowls, and I think it was Zales, or I forget exactly who was the sponsor, but really solid guy.
Well, I guess the whole point is, Kirk Cousins is a tad older, and he is coming off, Achilles injury, and you get to a quarterback at that age, and maybe it is time to draft the next guy up. But the next guy up in Atlanta was Kirk Cousins, and they're not evaluating Kirk Cousins as he's older off an Achilles. They evaluated Kirk Cousins as 4 years, $180 million, $100 million guaranteed, and he is now the leader of the band. We are following the drumbeat that he lays down, and now he is the second most popular quarterback in the city of Atlanta. If Kirk Cousins is the dependable Ford F-150 flatbed that gets a lot of work done at the construction site, well, Michael Penix is the brand new Corvette that just pulled up, and everyone's like, well, let's take that out for a ride before we get into this truck. And so I feel like the Falcons.
What if Penix plays awesome in the preseason? Then all of a sudden you get a full-blown quarterback controversy. But Damon, I get the feeling, and my daughter lives in Atlanta, and I get a much better sense for Atlanta now that I talk to her on a regular basis, That's a dog country, man. They're all into the Georgia Bulldogs. The Falcons are totally irrelevant. They need to get something to
Well, they're
shake
not
it up.
irrelevant to the Falcons, though. The Falcons think they're relevant, and I hear you.
But I mean, they need somebody to market, a star to market to their fan base. I think I know it's an odd fit. I know it's clumsy and clunky at this point, but I can't give them a bad grade for drafting the best quarterback in the draft. And
Right.
in my opinion, there's no doubt that Michael Penix is the best quarterback in the draft. How it's all going to come together, what it's going to mean for Cousins, what it's going to mean. I agree with you. It's clunky. It's odd. Cousins hasn't even started there, and they've already found their guy. But they did go for an older guy. I mean, Cousins is not a kid. Cousins is not 27. He's not 28. He's not 31. But I mean, Cousins is 35. So I mean, he's 34, 35. He's got,
right. But
he's got a couple of years.
They're paying him to play to 40. I mean, forget about what we think. They said, we think Kirk Cousins is not just the right now guy. We're going to give him 4 years, which is
but many of those contracts have bonus years to spread the thing out. And
they could get out of it after 2 years.
Yeah.
But I guess the whole point is you bring in Kirk Cousins to now set the tone. And the very first phone call he makes to his new GM and his new head coach, Raheem Morris, is, what the fuck?
I know. No, if you're Kirk Cousins, you can't be loving this. But once again, Atlanta saw an opportunity to take a quarterback that they think they have a conviction in, and I think they're right. I think they're right to have the conviction. I think Penix is really, really good. How it's all going to work out? It's like the the opening scene from the movie About Last Night with Rob Lowe. At this point, we don't know. Was she a pro? Was she a pro? At this point, we don't know. Do you remember that with Jim Belushi? They're on Chicago.
They're on the L, or they just come back from their softball game or something.
Right, at Lincoln Park.
Yeah.
Now listen, was she a pro? At this point, we don't know.
By the way, I will say that there is no greater love letter possibly written to the city of Chicago than About Last Night. It just makes you want to move to Chicago and live there in the summer so bad. It's great. By the way,
that was Demi Moore pre-boob job, I believe.
That was Demi Moore with a 98-mile-an-hour back foot slider. She was hot as hell. She really was. Without the boobs, without anything.
She didn't need him.
Young Demi had game.
Not quite like her appearance in the movie Blame It on Rio, which also there's a very famous beach scene in Blame It on Rio where Matt Williams, the Giants bench coach's ex-wife, Michelle whatever, comes running at Michael Caine with the full rack.
Yes,
with that, it's a great moment.
It's
a great moment in American cinema.
It's like getting out of the water in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Might even be better.
But here's the thing: the premise of that movie, Blame It on Rio, is a man in his 50s falling for a 16-year-old girl. So that's, you want to talk about, they're probably not producing that movie anymore. Not with at least bumping that 2 years for her. Anyway,
was she 16? I thought she was 18.
I think she was 16. I don't know. Either way, they're not making that movie today, shall we say.
She was full grown. Let's just say that. In Michael Caine's eyes, she was fully grown. No. As far as other teams,
did you see that Adam Schefter? This is how excited they are in Chicago about Caleb Williams. He broke the Fanatics record for draft night merchandise sales for any draft pick in any sport, just beating last week's record by Caitlin Clark. So Caleb Williams in Chicago, the whole city's very excited. For the first time ever, the Bears have prioritized improving their offense. And of course, they still have the wrong head coach to make that happen. But they're on their way to thinking something other than, we just need to draft 22 Brian Urlachers and go with that.
Maybe it's me, maybe it's an age thing, but to me, I think history shines brighter on you if you don't wear shades. You know what I mean? In your interviews, I thought Caleb did a nice job. He didn't wear shades. I think May did a nice job. He didn't wear shades. there were a lot of guys doing interviews in shades last night.
Every LSU wide receiver wore shades.
I mean, it was Detroit at night. So why the shades? Shades kind of, it's almost kind of like shades indoors. It's like, what are you hiding?
There are only 3 people who are allowed to wear sunglasses inside: Jack Nicholson, the blind, and assholes. That's it. That's the list. You never heard that before?
That is awesome.
Yeah. But that's the list. That's the
maybe Charlie Sheen. Maybe Charlie Sheen.
Nope. Charlie doesn't even make it. I want to see how coked up and watery Charlie's eyes are.
It's just
part of the fun.
I mean, I wear sunglasses outdoors a lot because I wear contacts and it's bright. But sunglasses indoors kind of says either I'm too cool for school, or I've got insecurity issues, or I've got, I don't know. I'm trying to shield you.
Mitchell and Ness says, you guys sound old sometimes. Oh, only sometimes? That's good. We are old all the time. So I'll take that.
If it was my kid and he was going up there, I'd be like, dude, lose the shades.
Ditch the shades. Lose the shades. If it's one chance to market yourself in front of the largest audience you've ever been in front of, let us see your face.
If it's training camp interview and you're out there in the middle of a July hot sun, wear the shades.
Right. If the choice is I'm Squinty McGee, or I can do this interview in shades, wear the shades outdoors, but indoors, nighttime, Detroit. By the way, let me just say this too.
Indoors, nighttime in Detroit in April.
Probably not.
Probably not. Not a good look.
NFL draft cities have officially become brides on their wedding day. All brides are beautiful on their wedding day. All cities are gorgeous the night of the NFL draft. Good for Detroit.
We'll never be here, by the way. Never.
It'll probably not. No, probably not.
Never here. The city of San Francisco rises up for the NFL. No, it won't happen.
Imagine a bunch of Tennessee Titan fans coming. Where would they put it? Where would they?
It was in Tennessee. Remember, it was in Nashville.
I know, and that worked. But where would they actually build the dome in San Francisco if it were hosting the draft? In the parking lot of the Cow Palace? Where are you putting this thing?
Golden Gate Park, maybe?
Our stadium? Ooh.
Golden Gate Park, I was thinking. Maybe, where they have the concerts there at Golden Gate Park.
Outside Lands?
Yeah, Outside Lands.
Yeah, I can see that. The Polo Grounds at Golden Gate Park would probably be it.
That would be cool.
Here's the thing, Larry, it could actually work. I wouldn't put it past San Francisco. It could actually work. I don't know how much the NFL would love it. I don't know how much.
I just don't know that we have that kind of passion here. I know there's a lot of Niner fans that have passion, and they would come out, but you know what I mean? The NFL does bigger numbers in Sacramento than it does in San Francisco. So I don't know.
There's more people in Sacramento than there are in San Francisco.
More football fans for sure.
Look, they're doing it in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's hardly a vacation destination, but for game day. That's where it's going next year. And I guess they're going to do it right at Lambeau, right?
I guess. Where else would they do it at the Piggly Squiggly or whatever? They're going to
Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah. We're here at Kroger's. Seriously, I bet you the stadium's probably the only meeting place of any significance in that entire city. As far as picks, though, who won, who lost, I definitely, I don't have much hope for the quarterbacks. If you say who's got the best chance to succeed? Caleb with the Bears, Jalen Daniels with the Commanders, Drake May with the Patriots. That they're the best organization of the three. But now Belichick's moved on, so who knows? Penix in Atlanta, sitting behind Cousins. J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. Bo Nix in Denver. Which quarterback is in the best spot to succeed? I'd probably argue that even though he's waiting, it's probably Penix in Atlanta, sitting behind Cousins.
It might be J.J. McCarthy too, who I
Darnold
like him. Well, I think Darnold's easy to beat. Very easy to beat out with any sort of showing at all. If you sidle up and are hip to hip in the race with Darnold, you've won the race. Because if all things being equal, you're not going to lean on Sam Darnold. You're going to rather see what the rookie's got. And he's got Justin Jefferson. Like, that's a pretty good target to be throwing at 180 times in your rookie
Jordan
season.
Addison.
And Jordan Addison, too. So,
T.J. Hawkinson.
Yeah. No, he's
a lot
got
of sons there.
Weapons. Lots of sons.
Lots of sons.
For, the Vikings, it's a very Norwegian surname, isn't it?
How about that? And didn't somebody do the Viking?
Oh yeah,
the whole skull thing.
I like. By the way, when an entire stadium when the stadium does that, though, it's loud. It's loud. It's almost like the Rock Chalk Jayhawk at
that division. That division could get juicy, man. Between the Vikings and JJ. The Bears trying to build up, the Packers and the Lions having, built up, that thing could be really hotly contested in the next 5 years. I thought the Raiders getting Brock Bowers, I thought that was a nice one because they just missed out on the quarterback in Bo Nix, and people are like, oh, Denver screwed the Raiders. And then the Raiders come back in the next pick and take, probably the best value right there in Brock Bowers. And now they've got Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. Makes you wonder if they'll trade Mayer. I thought that was a great pick. I thought the Saints getting Fuaga. I mean, just looking at Fuaga, I mean, you can tell he's all football, and he's just just absolute uproots you out of the whole kind of a offensive tackle. He's going to be great there for years and years and years.
Lions move up to 24 to get Tyrion Arnold out of Bama, the corner, and
that's what they needed.
I saw him in everyone's top 12, 13, 14. Maybe the first corner off the board. So that's a good pick for the Lions, you would think.
I thought Philly getting Quinyon, we talked about it last night, but I thought Philly getting Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo, who's, I think, easily the best corner in this draft, and they got him at 22, and they didn't have to trade up. I mean, if there was a team that was really fortunate last night, it was Philly. Quinyon Mitchell could have gone 10 picks earlier, 12 picks earlier. Instead, he's on the board at 22, and the Eagles get the number one corner who's tests great, plays great. I mean, that was not nice to see. As a Niner fan, I did not like seeing the Eagles get Quinyon Mitchell there. But I did love the fact that Dallas kind of gacked. I mean, once again, Dallas, it's like they're so hit and miss. Last year they took Mozzie Smith, and he's like, the first guy off the bus, Bruce Feldman freaks list. But there were a lot of people whispering before the draft, yeah, he works out awesome and he looks awesome, but the tape just isn't there. And I get the feeling Dallas scouts don't really use the tape because they went with Tyler Guyton at 29, and Tyler Guyton is just, I mean, he's 6'7", 200 or 330 pounds. So he looks like just a monster. But if you watch the film, he doesn't finish anybody. He doesn't look interested. He rises up out of his stance and loses all of his power. He's like one of these guys that looks awesome, but the play and the tape is just doesn't back it up. I was a huge fan of Tyler Guyton until I started really digging into his tape. And then I'm like, wow, this guy is not what you're looking for. And sure enough, Dallas offensive line. So I like the fact that Dallas doesn't know what they're doing.
Well, and my man crush, Amarius Mims to the Bengals. Again, it'll either be the next Anthony Munoz, and he is, protecting Burrow for the next decade, or Amarius Mims is going to prove to you that he's often hurt, and there was a reason why he only played 8 games. I hope he works out. That guy was my man crush in this draft. I wanted the Niners to come away with Amarius Mims. He goes 18 to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Good pick. I mean, the guy's absolutely monster. 11-inch hands, longest wingspan in the draft, 6'8", 340. That's his natural walk around weight.
And that's the thing.
He is absolutely the prototype. I mean, Al Davis would have loved 2 players in this draft. Xavier Worthy for his foot speed and Amarius Mims for his just, rare human. Al Davis loved rare human beings. Amarius Mims is a rare human being. The question is he a gigantic marshmallow like James Wiseman, or is he a glass cutter? Is this guy super tough? And if he's tough, that's all I really care about, because you're talking about, some, believe it or not, some people are blessed with such talent that they're on talent alone, they make it to the pros.
James Wiseman.
I remember, talking to Jeff Kent. Jeff Kent didn't like baseball. Jeff Kent just played baseball for money. I mean, there are people out there they're just really good at what they do, and they don't have this passion for their sport. You can't play football without that passion. So I'd want to have is a conversation with Amarius Mims. I've seen the film, I've seen the workouts, I've seen the measurements. All I'd want to do is talk to him. Is he all in on playing football, and he just played 8 games because of circumstance? Or is he 6'8", 340, and so he's an offensive tackle, but he's not really that interested. He's more interested in sculpture and, poetry. And, there are people like that. It's like, hey, I'm just here for the paycheck. I need more than that.
We're not looking for well-rounded. We're looking for ridiculously committed to the sport. That's what
I think it hurts the guys from the smart schools, from Yale, from Harvard, from Stanford. Why invest in a guy like that? I mean, remember the guy Bryce Love? He was a very good football player, and he's out of football, and it's like he got concussions, and he decided to walk away. It's like NFL people don't like prospects that have lots of secondary career options.
Right? Toby Gerhart, everybody.
Right. I may do this, and I may do that, and I may be. We don't like that. We'd rather you be all in on football.
Right. God, who was the linebacker that the 49ers drafted, had a really good rookie year, and then it was like, I'm done. I can't remember his name.
Chris Borland.
Chris Borland. Yeah, there's a kid with options because his dad has money. He's got doctor money. So,
right. And he was an awesome player. The guy was like a incredibly productive linebacker, and played 1 year, got a couple concussions, got spooked, and walked away from the game. I mean, good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a good dude. He was a great dude. But NFL personnel people are on the lookout to not draft those guys. They want guys who are like, man, I live, breathe, and eat football, and I want to have a 10-year career.
Larry, ESPN draft analyst, getting back to Ricky Pearsall, his post-draft analyst of the Niners' first-round pick was, the Niners face an uncertain future at wide receiver, and Brandon Ayuk is set for a new contract. Pearsall helps alleviate those concerns. Moving forward, a fantastic player from the slot, Pearsall gives 49ers height, speed, great jump ball player. Should Debo or Ayuk be moved in the future? This is a pick for the future. That's what Matt Miller writes, and he also says that his pro comp is Tyler Boyd, which is funny because you could have just spent money, not much of it, to bring in a guy like Tyler Boyd.
And they still might.
Here's the thing now. If they do, what are you doing? What way is that to build a team that has more than just the one? I don't know.
Well, if you wind up moving on from Debo or Ayuk, either one tonight, you're still going to need another receiver. And to me, it's really clear that they like ball skills and value ball skills and, the ability to track the ball in the air at a very high rate, especially with, now with Brock Purdy. They feel like Brock Purdy can put it on you. Shanahan's smart. Shanahan's a receiver who coaches quarterbacks and whose offense produces points. He knows that if you've got a quarterback who's accurate and on time, and you can combine that quarterback with 2 or 3 receivers that have big catch radiuses and great ball skills, you're going to have a passing game that's going to be very difficult to stop. Because that, every time you get to 3rd and 5, you've got this dart throwing monster in Purdy throwing it to guys who have these great, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. I mean, I'm not saying that Pearsall is Puka or Pearsall is Cooper Kupp, but he's in that vein. He's in that Julian Edelman, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua vein of he's really, really quick in a short area, excellent ball tracking ability. He can adjust to the poorly thrown throw. He gets in position to make moves. You can use him as the downfield blocker. You know what I mean? He's got the instincts. He can find the soft spot in the zone and sit there and wait for Purdy to find him. So this is the chain moving kind of a player with a high football IQ and great ball skills. So as far as I'm concerned, you can't really go wrong if you have multiple guys like this. So, if you did move Debo today, I would definitely, if I could, sign a Tyler Boyd. And now you've got an Ayuk and Boyd and Pearsall and Jawan, 3 or 4 guys with really, really good ball skills. 3 or 4 guys that really, really can almost be unstoppable on 3rd and 5 if Purdy finds them, So it's a change in what they've had. Debo's a unique player. They're all somewhat unique, but Pearsall's definitely a chain mover, and I think a very good one.
Well, and as we evaluate what he is and what his rookie year looks like, I think it's unfair to trade or to compare him to anyone taken ahead of him. It's the players taken behind him, the other options that the 49ers had and passed on to take Pearsall. And the very first comp was the very next pick. What'd you think of the Carolina Panthers trading up to 32 to get Xavier Legette? I mean,
they wanted him bad. Supposedly they met with him like 5 or 6 times. I mean, this is a player that I really like. I mean, you're talking about huge, powerful, and explosive. And I just had him rated higher. And then
So what do you think the difference was there for the Niners as they're weighing the two? Let's say that, I mean, we don't know if that's exactly, the both sides of the same coin, but ultimately, why would the Niners take the slighter, less beastly player when they have had success with a beastly wide receiver?
Yeah. I mean, I think that that Shanahan clearly wants reliability. He wants guys who are going to be reliable. He wants receivers that can block and also make difficult catches. I mean, this is a high-end receiver that they got for sure. As far as the receiving skills, high-end receiving skills. And what did they just add in Trent Taylor? He's not the fastest, most dynamic athlete. What he is he's very reliable. He's going to catch the ball. He's going to, catch the punts. He's not going to fumble them. He's not going to give you a big return. Legette, his highlight tape is awesome, but there's also drops there. There's also some inconsistency in his route running. He rounds into and out of cuts. So, I mean, there's a lot of refinement that's needed there. I would have done the work because of 6'3", 230 and, 4.3 speed. I would have put in the work to coach him up and gone with Legette, and I made that clear. But I understand why they went with Pearsall.
So looking at possible dance partners for either Ayuk or Debo, if one is to be traded, the first team that jumps out to me, and we talked about this last night, Larry, is Washington.
Yeah.
They would get that. Washington has 2 early second-round picks. Is there a third at the back here? No, it's just 2 in the second round. Washington's picking at 36 and 40.
But then there's also New England, and New England's desperate. Supposedly they like Deebo Samuel. And if you could get New England second and third for Deebo Samuel, I think their third might even be higher, right? Isn't their third like 33?
Right. A lot of people are saying Buffalo could be in play, but I don't think Buffalo
definitely could be in play.
But why do you give up? And maybe this is a bad question because Stephon Diggs was a little bit of a he
wanted out.
Yeah, their relationship broke up more than his production just dropped, but they just walked away from a high-priced receiver. I don't see them walking right back into another high-priced receiver.
I don't think they wanted to walk away from a high-priced receiver. I think that receiver gave them an ultimatum and said, "Get me the hell out of here," and they did it. I think it sounds like Josh Allen criticized Diggs early in the year and fractured that relationship. But Diggs also is an interesting guy who has walked away from other situations. So, is it Josh Allen? Is it Diggs? Who knows? But there was some argument there, some lack of belief in one another. And so Brandon Beane, I think, was forced to divest himself of Diggs and did. But I think they definitely, he said it. Hey, we're definitely still looking for receivers. So, there's a bunch of teams. But I think New England and Jacksonville, especially New England has nothing, receiver wise.
Hey, Green
Demario
Bay,
Douglas, Kendrick Bourne. What's that?
Green Bay's got a couple of second-round picks. They could maybe put one in play, although I don't see the Niners and Packers doing business together.
And they don't need him. Look, they got Jaden Reed, they got Dontavian Wicks, they've got all kinds of young receivers that are ready to roll. I think you got to look at teams that just don't have the receiver thing is bare. Like the Chargers. What are the Chargers looking like in round 2? They have Debo, they love to run the ball. Debo could be a part of their run game. They don't have a receiver. They didn't go Neighbors. They went Alt in round 1. I think the Chargers definitely are going to be looking for a receiver. I think
Chargers got the 5th pick of the second round, number 37.
Yeah, I definitely think New England is going to be needing a receiver.
There's no player at 37 who's better than Brandon Ayuk.
If you're the Ayuk thing, I would want if they were moving Ayuk, I would want both of those twos, and I'd want both those twos and Jahan Dotson, from the Commanders. But I do think the Commanders are probably very much in play because what I said yesterday still stands, which is that the belief is that they want to get momentum. There's so much negativity around that franchise, but it's an iconic franchise. But they badly need a new stadium to be, to become the team they want to become on and off the field. And so I just think that they're not on your typical 4 or 5 year plan. I think they badly want to find a receiver to support Jaden Daniels with more. And I think they could be a team in play. They got a bunch of picks. I think 5 in the top 50, something like that. So, I think Washington, New England, Chargers, there's probably a couple of others we're not thinking of. I know Baltimore showed interest in the past in Debo, but what do you think? Do you think they'll ultimately pull the trigger on a Debo trade today, or do you think they'll keep him?
I think they're keeping him. I do. I think that the 49ers have reason with some players to be in let's run this back one last time mode. And both Debo and Ayuk are those players in my mind. You'd like to bring them all back. Again, I feel like we're worried about 2025 math that doesn't apply to 2024. I think they can squeeze it in. I think they can make it fit somehow. I don't know.
The only thing I would say is what's the vibe going to be like in the room if Debo feels like he's gone at the end of the year? That's the only thing. It's like, players are really smart. The dynamic in that room is really important. A lot of people are like, well, just, let Ayuk sit. That's said from somebody who's never been in the room. The last thing you want from your big time playmaker is to have him sitting in the corner of the room stewing about his contractual situation or, tweeting about how he's getting fucked by the team. It's like one of those things where I don't know. I think that
but here's the thing. When you enter
your locker room chemistry matters.
When you enter this is now my paycheck stratosphere that Debo entered, that changes things. No one has to tell Debo about, cap casualties. He sees them all over this league. If the Chiefs can walk away from Tyreek Hill at a moment of truth, Debo, why would you be any different? It's not something any player wants to really consider or think is a reality for themselves, but there are examples of we move on from this position at a price point, and you put yourself into it, demanded you be into this price point. So, what gives you financial security might also undermine your professional security with the team that you're on. And that's just the deal with the devil that you make.
Yeah. It's just the reality is, your room, the dynamic in your room does matter. It definitely does matter. And I'm not saying you got to keep everybody, happy, but you got to understand who's going to be a mature veteran and who's not going to take it the right way. All I'm saying is if you really, do want to part ways with him,
look,
today would be probably a good opportunity because at least you could get a couple pieces to the puzzle. I mean, if indeed Deebo Samuel fetches a 2 and a 3, if he fetches that much right now, I would do it. I would do it because your cap problem is not going away. Your cap problem is significant, and you're going to have to do something to make your books a little bit more
Gem 626 says Deebo dead cap. It's an astronomical number this year.
It's $7 million. I think
here's the thing.
It's the cap hit.
Obviously, if they're considering doing the deal, they know that they can absorb it. It's not like they're going to do the math on the trade after they've consummated the trade.
What? We made the trade. Now we're screwed.
We
didn't even think about the cap ramifications. Oh, Parag,
what are you doing over here? Check in, buddy. The draft's underway.
You see Parag in the corner, and he's got a soccer hat. He's got a soccer ball, and he's dribbling around. He's got a headband, and it says Leeds, and he's not really focused on the Niners anymore. He's just, I wasn't paying attention. I was worried about, scoring a goal.
He's in a Premier League chat room.
Yeah, exactly. You don't understand, man. I've got bigger issues in the net.
Oh, God. Again, to get back to Ricky Pearsall, I like the name Ricky, Sticky Ricky, Slick Ricky. There's, Pretty Ricky. There's going to be a
Slick
lot.
Rick.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of names attached to him.
You saw CJ Stroud's reaction.
Oh, this was a player that he envisioned maybe being his teammate or something. CJ Stroud, if you're Ricky Pearsall, you might want to send in CJ Stroud to get the deal done. That guy's his agent.
Here's the thing. I guarantee you when the Rams drafted Cooper Kupp, nobody was like, oh, can't wait to see this white guy from Eastern Washington. Played on the red carpet. Oh, he's going to be awesome. Yeah, he runs 4.62. Oh my God, and he's medium size. He is going to be amazing. But you know what? Their guy, the receiver. It's not. This isn't a track meet. This is a football game, and you got to catch the ball. And the one thing about Ricky Pearsall is he's got great ball skills and a big catch radius. And now he's on a team where there's lots of options and a quarterback who's deadly accurate in the middle of the field. I guarantee you Ricky Purdy to Pearsall is going to be somewhat prolific. I'm not sure if he'll be consistently prolific, but they're going to put up some numbers there, Damon.
If he's on the field. And that's my reservation.
There's no question about that. You don't put up numbers if you're not on the field.
If he's not on the field, he's not putting up anything other than
he will put up monster numbers without being on the field. You watch.
But that'd be a hell of a player.
This guy from the bench is dominating the game.
Didn't even play 6 touchdowns. How'd he do it? We don't know. But it was impressive.
Unbelievable player.
Hey,
no, but they're getting a guy. They're getting a guy who's, I think, going to be really effective. Today, it's easy to go, man. Freaking Xavier Legette runs faster. Man, Malachi Corley is a little bit more physical. You went for
Xavier Worthy runs faster.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy is so much faster. But you're going to be happy in the games. Because Xavier Worthy's not near the receiver that Ricky Pearsall is as a receiver. Now, Pearsall's not nearly the runner that Xavier Worthy is, but the position is not runner. The position is receiver. So I think people are going to like Pearsall, but it's the fact that he's a complimentary third receiver, chain mover, even if he's super effective, it still is like that's your first round pick. I mean, to me, I would have been happier if he had been the second round pick, but whatever. I do like him as a player.
The second round of the draft begins at 4:00 West Coast time. Larry and I are going to be at the Dubliner.
4:30.
Let's just call it 4:00.
Okay,
make sure you don't walk into the Dubliner at 4:48.
I'm gonna be there early at the Dubliner, throwing them back and plugging stuff in.
Nice.
And that's not code for anything.
Plug it in. What's Lee Hammer do? He plugs things in. Funniest thing Radney ever
said. What does Lee Hammer do? He plugs things in. And make sure he gets all the crucial home run highlights, except for the most crucial.
If there is a trade of Ayuk or Debo or anybody, do you think it happens before the Bills are on the clock at 33? Do you think the deal would happen before the second round starts, or would it happen in the round?
So I would think it would happen in the round on the clock, but the way it's being discussed by Silver and some of the references, it could happen. I think it could happen even before. It wouldn't shock me if it happened at like 3:00. And I don't, I'm not wishing for it, but man, I would sure love to have a couple extra picks in the second and third round to build up this offensive line, to build up this defensive line, to build up the secondary, to get that linebacker. I mean, to me, what's really exciting is that, man, I mean, all the best linebackers, Peyton Wilson, Cedric Gray, they're all there. All the best defensive tackles, Johnny Newton, Michael Hall, they're all there. There's several good corners.
Safety help is there. There's
a lot. There's a lot there.
We've only made 33 picks. There are 400 dudes trying to get drafted. So,
yeah,
32.
But, I mean, there's some, the spots where the Niners are going to be looking now. Like, what's the priority now? Okay, now the priority is still offensive line, defensive line, corner. It was offensive line, defensive line, corner, wide receiver. Now it's offensive line, defensive line, corner.
By the way, you know who crushed draft coverage? Albert Breer. Albert Breer was ahead of the ESPN broadcast sometimes by 2 picks.
What do you mean? I mean, like he was releasing the information of who was being picked?
Yes.
See, I hate guys who do that.
Well, dude, Albert Breer doesn't work for ESPN, so he's not on their schedule.
I know, but I mean, it's like you're ruining the show. It's like I watch the draft so I can be somewhat surprised. If you just,
believe me,
tipping the picks
came up.
I don't like pick tippers. I mean, if you told me that he had awesome analysis, that's one thing. But just because you're tapped into some guy sitting next to a phone who's handing the card and getting the story first is one thing, but not in the draft. Not, I had it 90 seconds before it was announced. Great. You're ruining my draft. Congrats.
You don't have to follow him if you don't want to.
I mean, nothing against Albert Breer, but like to me, killing the coverage would be like killing the coverage would be like if you had great content about every pick. If you had great things to say about every pick. Who do you think is the best, by the way? Did you watch the ESPN coverage or the NFL Network?
I was back and forth. I didn't watch any of the McAfee thing. I didn't watch any of that. I was back and forth between ESPN and NFL.
What Network. McAfee was on what channel? Was on it? He had a different channel?
Like ESPN Ocho,
I didn't watch that
broadcasts. And he had Bill Belichick.
I'm not big on McAfee. I mean, some punter wearing a tank top with his buddies with mullets who swear. I mean, it's like
dude, he started it all on YouTube. Like,
I'm nothing against him. I'm just saying I'm not like, wow, look at he's just amazing. I don't think his analysis is amazing. I kind of like Joel Klatt. I think he's pretty good.
Joel Klatt knows the college game very well. How those players apply to the NFL is where I think he sort of slips out of the discussion. I think Daniel Jeremiah is fantastic.
He's good. Kuiper's still the best. I mean, you throw the highlights and Kuiper talking about the player, that's the best. I mean, Kuiper Kuiper can make anybody sound good.
With that
The music they've got going behind is awesome, and it's just like he's just really good.
By the way,
I also miss Trey Wingo. I miss Trey Wingo. I like Trey Wingo.
Trey was great at hosting the draft. I miss Trey.
He was. Who hosted it this year? Who was the ESPN host, the main host?
Michael Greenberg.
Yeah, so
Greeny.
I'm not a Greeny. Yeah, Greeny.
Greeny does nothing for me.
Some kind of anal Jets fan who whines about shit and just everything's about New York. It's like, no, I don't love him. Yeah, I miss Wingo. Wingo was funny. First of all, I miss Berman. I mean, Berman, Boomer. Come on, the best was Boomer and Gruden and Kuiper. I mean, that's the best. I do like Louis Riddick, though. I think he's pretty solid.
Gruden should have remained a TV star. How famous and rich would that guy be now if he hadn't come back for one more bite of the NFL apple? And then, through the release of all the emails and everything, his reputation is ruined. We have yet to hear from John Gruden since he was dismissed by the Raiders.
He's working. Didn't he work this year for some secondary football league or something?
He's not even on the planet anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's trying to rehabilitate himself. It doesn't sound like he's going to get another opportunity. But he I loved Gruden's quarterback school.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
That was one of the best things he did.
I think Brian Baldinger needs to be more involved. Like, what does NFL Network need to do to turn around and say, this guy's our best analyst?
Yeah, Baldy is the best.
I would love to see him play a bigger role. But here's the thing. Baldy's cool enough to where he might not even want that.
Zerline's really good. Lance
Zerline is good.
Yeah. The girl who does the analytics, the blonde girl on NFL Network, she's good. Cynthia Freeland.
Okay.
She's very talented. Very talented.
I'm not really. I mean, I know.
You're not in on Cynthia Freeland. You don't like her information.
I know her name. I've never heard anyone.
She gets into the analytics of it, and I like the analytics. I think she does a good job. Colleen, whatever, not as much. She's sounds fun and everything, but she's doesn't provide a lot of great content. I like Bucky Brooks. I think he's good, but to me, it's Kuiper. I mean, and I I'll say this: I miss McShay. I thought McShay was really good. I don't know why ESPN had to get rid of McShay. That was a weird one.
Well, and where is he resurfaced, I guess, would be my question. I think that McShay was battling some
physical stuff, right?
I don't know if it was physical stuff or it was substance stuff.
Oh.
But I think McShay had a little bit of I got to step away for a while. He had that really odd on-camera moment where it looked like he was just kind of going through a nervous breakdown as he was trying to file a sideline report. And we really haven't seen him since.
Wow.
I hope he's all right. I hope he's okay. Because
I saw him.
He and Kuiper would have like really good, healthy, productive arguments.
Oh yeah, and he knew the players. And and then the other weird one is they have Kuiper, they got rid of McShay, they hired Matt Miller, but they don't use Matt Miller.
Well, Matt Miller's
he's never there. I mean,
he's not good on camera.
I don't know if he's not good on camera. I think he's decent, but I think he knows the players. And as a Niner fan, I always felt like he was dialed in on the Niners. We got this one. He says, "How can you forget Chris Mortensen? Come on,
we talked about
a month ago and can't get any love."
We talked about Mort last night. Mort
was a friend. I mean, I talked to Mort on the show going back to mid 1990s.
Yeah, I had him as a weekly guest on my show for a couple of years.
He was amazing. I told you the Mort story where I told him. I booked him like on a Friday. I'm saying, "Hey, Mort, can you join me?" And he's like, "I'm so busy. I can do it next Thursday." And I'm like, "Great. Let's do it right at the start of the show." I was doing 7 to 10. I'm like, "We'll have you on right at 7:00. I'm figuring Chris Mortensen. Hey, guys, we'll start our show with Chris Mortensen. It was like the week of the draft, right? And he's so then all of a sudden, or maybe it was a couple weeks before the draft. It was in March, I think. And all of a sudden, I get this call during the face-off. Hey, it's Chris Mortensen. And I forgot that it was like Ask the Giants or, whatever. Let's be positive about the Giants hour on KMBR in the offseason. So I go into the thing. I'm like, Mort, you're never going to believe this. It's Ask the Giants hour. And I can't do it. And I've got somebody else at 8:00. I really can't do this till 8:30. And he's in the East,
Right,
which is 11:30 Eastern. And this guy's a great guest. And he's like, no problem. I'm going to be doing some writing. I got some phone calls to make. I'll call you at 11:30 Eastern. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, absolutely. I love, and he came on. He was great. I mean, who does that? This guy was on top. We're talking about, in the mid 90s. This guy was absolutely on top.
Yeah.
On top of the football world.
Adam Schefter before Adam Schefter, right?
Right. Adam Schefter before Adam Schefter. He was better than John Clayton at that point. He was the Mort Report. He was on Sports Center. He was everything, and he was on the biggest platform there was, and yet he was going to readjust his schedule by a couple hours and come on at 11:30 Eastern on KMBR from Connecticut, from his Howard Johnson's in Connecticut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To talk on AM radio for nothing, for free, just because he was a good dude. So, Chris, he was good friends with Dusty Baker. He was he loved the Giants. He loved checking in on baseball. He loved the NFL. He loved what he did. He was a family man. He just, somebody said it best. He was the best of us. He was on top of it. He was diligent. He was trustworthy. He was kind. How many people can you go through your life and say, man, they were great at what they did, and they were also kind along the way? Now, there's a lot of people who are damn good at what they do, but they're not necessarily the kindest people. This guy was the kindest person and exceptional.
No, he's like a real Southern gentleman.
He's a Southern California guy.
Really? I've always associated with him in just Atlanta.
Yeah. No, I think he might have been based in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But I mean, Damon, just everybody loved Mort. What was one of my favorite radio shows that I ever heard, and it got me excited to want to be a radio host. And you're gonna laugh when I tell you this. But our friend Linda, the Fabulous Sports Babe. Do you remember the Fabulous Sports Babe?
Absolutely, I do.
And the Fabulous Sports Babe used to have Mort on all the time in 1995, 1996. And that show was carried here in this market on some radio station. I don't know who had the Fabulous Sports Babe. And I used to sit there.
KNBR 1050. That was the clearinghouse, I think, for ESPN Radio. And that's when ESPN Radio was built around the Fabulous Sports Babe, Tony Bruno,
Chuck Wilson or something.
Chuck Wilson, yes, Chuck Wilson, and
right.
Who was it? Chris. Chris. He does a lot of hockey too. A lot of I'm blanking on his name, but yeah, and all night with Todd Wright. I remember you and I would get out of late sports byline shows together. You'd give me a lift back to my apartment since you were hitting the bridge, or you were driving out to the Richmond when you were still living there, or whatever it was, and you would drop me off, and we would listen to Todd Wright.
It was awesome. Out of Tampa, WDAE, and it was Bruno, Chuck Wilson, Todd Wright,
Chris Moore. That's the name.
Chris Moore. And these guys were fantastic. But I remember the Fabulous Sports Babe, and she, hey, how you doing? It's a fabulous sport. Hey, Mort, and she'd have Mort on, and Mort would just make her show. And I'm listening to her. I'm like, I don't even like this lady, but you know what? She's got Mort on, and they sound so friendly. I mean, the whole thing, there's some great stuff there. There was some great radio there, and Mort was he was great on radio. He was great on television. And I remember my kid or somebody asking me, why is this guy on? Because he was struggling in his later years, and they kept him on. unlike other people that struggled who were off immediately, they viewed Mort as kind of a made man there, so they kept him around after he had the stroke and this and that. And they just, it wasn't the same, but you know what? Everybody loved Chris. And yeah, to not see him and, what a guy. What a
Did
guy.
they do like an in memoriam in the first round? I didn't see any like tribute to him.
Yeah, they did. They did on ESPN, and they just did a whole
NFL,
breakdown. They did a breakdown just saying, hey, how much Mort meant. But yeah, I mean, to me, he was informed and he was passionate and he was fun, but he was loyal and he was kind. Like if he had done your show before, then you were like on his list, right? And he would answer the phone. And if you ever needed him again, hey, I've been on your show before. You treated me good. I'm coming back. He was available. Think about it. We're one market in a nation of football fans. He had people from every market calling him, and I'm sure he did all of their shows, for free. I mean, the guy was an amazing guy, just an amazing guy, and so kind-hearted, always complimentary, always easygoing and informed. The guy's content was great. The Mort Report was gold. It's kind of like Peter Gammon's Diamond Notes. Remember that?
Right. You needed a Mort Report on game day to set your fantasy football lineup, to know what you were going to watch this afternoon, what bets you were going to maybe lay down. Like he uncovered a lot of information when it was less readily available. I mean, pre-Twitter reporters were just kind of a grade to themselves. They were capital J journalists. And it feels like, because of Twitter, there's a lot more lowercase j journalists in the room now.
Well, I mean, it's a different time. It's a visual medium, so they're always going to try to find attractive people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Mort wasn't there for his looks. He was there for his connections. He was there for Jerry Jones actually talked to him. Jimmy Johnson actually talked to him. Right. He would get stuff. And I kind of view Mort, if there's a guy that's still kind of like that, I think Sal Palantonio would be the guy that kind of is like that, trusted, and he's actually got some real good content and some real good contacts, and he's smart. He cuts right to the chase. He knows what the story is.
To say something.
He's going to say something, and it's going to be significant, So anyway, R.I.P. Mort, and we missed him badly. And we continue to, and he's a great guy, and our prayers go out to his family, and I'm sure they miss him incredibly, and I'm sure he's enjoying this NFL draft.
Another one of those old school guys who's still around. He's not nearly used in the capacity that he used to be used. Like Ed Werner was always standing out and, standing on a lawn in Arlington, giving a report on the Cowboys.
Yeah. I just saw Ed Werner actually when the Niners played the Cowboys. I sat next to him in the media room, and
I remember, Radnich used to do a segment about Ed Werner standing on your lawn.
Yeah.
I tell you, Radnich and Bruno in their heyday, that was a great segment. It really, really, truly was.
There's no doubt. Are you kidding me?
You'd have to put it on, and it would be the segment that left you in your car when you got to your destination, which is the ultimate compliment you can give any radio segment. I arrived at my location. I didn't immediately get out of my car. I stayed and I listened, and that's what Bruno and Radnich did. I think maybe better than anybody on KNBR. You could not walk away from that segment while it was rolling.
Well, both radio geniuses. And Bruno, to me, I'll tell you what I've really loved. I mean, nothing against Ratty, because I loved Ratty and worked with Ratty for a long time. But as far as the Bruno, Chuck Wilson, Todd Wright trio on the weekends when they did that on ESPN was like amazing.
Hey, what do you get, a free bowl of soup with that hat?
I mean, amazing, because Todd Wright knew everything. He was like encyclopedic on this stuff. And the defensive line coach at Arkansas, Bob Smith, he just freaking, right. I mean, it was just like unbelievable.
Right. You could tell that Todd Wright was not married, had no kids.
I mean, Todd Wright had knowledge, just incredible, and great delivery. I love that show, Todd Wright All Night, which came on after me. for a long time. Todd Wright with elite, what's her name? Something Cornell.
Louise Cornell.
Louise Cornell.
Who was the longtime program director of ESPN Radio.
Really? And then I'll tell you what I loved about Todd Wright that I stole from Todd Wright was interviewing one guy who was glib and would talk, but wasn't a star after baseball games. Like Chad Kruger is coming on next, or AJ Pierzynski is coming on next. And it's like not a star, but a great conversation about baseball with somebody who knows it, but is not a star, but knows it cold and is really glib and can talk. And I remember I copied that. I copied that. It was very successful.
Before he became 126 million, Barry Zito. Todd Wright had Barry Zito as a weekly guest. He would call the segment the Z Files, and Zito would talk about, the throw pillow that he would bring on the team bus with him, or the guitar. And, he knew it was going to be a bad day because he broke a guitar string as he was warming up for the game. It was a real conversation. It wasn't an interview. And that's the peak of your interviews.
But just like also,
you're the best.
During the playoffs, instead of like playing tons of highlights or having some, the star of the game on and ask 6 dumb questions and say goodbye, he would get like somebody who was in the league, who wasn't in the playoffs, who really like Ryan Dempster, somebody who was just a glib baseball player who was going to watch the game, where he could talk about in the 3rd inning when he went slider, and then the catcher made that motion to the dugout and the manager came out, and he would get these amazing answers from, these informed baseball players who had been watching these baseball playoff games. It was genius. And I remember I copied that. I got, several, kind of like during the Giants playoff runs, like, or when the Giants weren't in the playoffs, get like some random Giant or A on. Bernsey, I think, did it for a while. Just anybody who could talk and was going to watch the games and you could analyze it, with afterwards. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. All copied from Todd Wright.
Moondust says, remember Roy Firestone? Absolutely. Up close with Roy Firestone. He was ESPN's Barbara Walters, where he was trying to get a kiss and cry segment out of every interview he did. There was always a box of tissues on the Roy Firestone set.
What was the name of his show again?
I think Up Close.
Up Close. Yeah. Yeah, seriously. I mean, those are the old days of ESPN, where ESPN was just Sports Center, Up Close, and Joe Theismann doing aerobics with Gilead Yankovic or whatever in Hawaii on a circular mat. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Like Bodies in Motion or something. Like, you look over at Joe Theismann's doing one of these. Yeah. It's like, with like
the dude with the he had like the afro,
the Gilad Yankovic guy or whatever he was on with,
like a Serbian afro or whatever.
Yeah. And then
all leaned out,
leaned out, and they were always like on the most beautiful, picturesque beach in front of like the sun going down. I mean, it was just an amazingly beautiful show to watch.
How are you doing aerobics on the beach? Like, get yourself a Mai Tai and go lay down with the rest of us, for goodness sakes.
I've had Theismann on a few times and asked him about it. And Joe, that's another great guest, by the way. Theismann. Yeah, he's phenomenal, man. Joe is absolutely phenomenal.
And get your ginkgo biloba if you're having trouble with that prostate.
Joe's an incredible guy. I interviewed him a bunch of times, years ago on the radio. And then I had him on when I was filling in on 95.7, I think for you in the last couple of years. And in the middle of the segment, he's like, "Larry, great to talk to you again." It's like, dude, how many people remember radio hosts they did interviews with years prior? I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like to me, that shows that Joe's good people. Joe's good people. He remembers who he's talking to. He's not just, like sometimes you do an interview with somebody and they don't know you at all. and then they never say your name.
Look at it this way. He either really enjoyed it or he sure knew how to make you feel good and comfortable. And there's a part of that too, and yeah, whenever you're talking to a new guest as a host and they say your name during the answer of the conversation, you're always like, all right, we sound like best friends now. This is going to work.
This guy's a pro.
This guy's a total pro. He knows how to be a good guest.
Seriously. And you do it. I'm sure I do it. When I go on people's shows, I will say their name at least once in the interview. Hey, thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me on, Tony. And it's just, you can tell everybody loves it. It means so much. You know what I mean? Hey, Jody Mack has me on all the time on IP in Philly. And I'll go on there. Jody, what's going on, Jody? And the hosts love that. Because it just makes it's the difference between we're going to the beat writer of the Colorado Rockies, and he's going to join us. Hello, thanks for having me on, as opposed to Damon, what's up? What's going on? Even I remember when you'd have Michael Irvin on, and there was the familiarity that Michael Irvin had with you. It always sounded so much better. Well, because Michael would be like, Damon,
What was amazing about all that was when, I've gotten Christmas cards from Michael Irvin. Like we texted each other. I'll be sitting on the couch, and this is during the whole like Debo might want to get traded thing. And Michael Irvin is like the consigliere of any single wide receiver in the NFL. You call Uncle Michael first. And he was giving me inside info on that Debo thing. And if I was framing it the right way, it's because I had Michael Irvin in my ear telling me what was really happening. And I'm also smart enough to know that Michael Irvin knows that there's no bit of information that'll give me that I won't go public with, and that might help the player's position. And, there's an element of, is he using me? Is he trying to give you information? But, it was
he knows how to play the game.
Yeah, it was a great relationship. I really like it. By the way, our Boogie in the chat says, Bodies in Motion. Holy crap. I remember watching that during my summer vacations when I was going to grad school. Yeah. Yeah.
Bodies in Motion.
Bodies in Motion. Maybe that should be the name of this show, Larry. Bodies in Motion.
Denise Austin. Remember Denise Austin? She also was on there. She was gorgeous.
Denise was a good-looking gal.
I mean, this is what ESPN used to have.
Remember the Edge Gillette matchup with Chris Mortensen and like Todd Christensen, and Susie Colbert was like the anchor and host of that show. You learned an awful lot about X's and O's. Like they weren't ESPN. Imagine this. There's nobody under the age of 30 who will even believe what I'm about to tell them. ESPN used to cover sports.
Well, they do still, but they just do it in
would get into the X's and O's. They would have shows that would take you into a granular level of strategy that are fully non-existent now. Fully non-existent.
Well, I mean, look at the best shows. I mean, Greg Cosell, Sal Powell, Matt Bowen, Darius Butler. I forget who the other guy. The matchup show. It's in the middle of the night. It's like when I used to have Greg on KMBR, I'd be embarrassed to like tell people what time his show is on. And his show airs, guys. You can check the show. It airs tonight at 1 a.m. and then it airs tomorrow again at 3:30 a.m. and then it airs on Friday at 6 a.m. It's like, set your DVR. I mean, I don't know that I've ever watched that show live. It's always taped.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the middle of the night.
ESPN should be a platform useful for information on all sports. It's different now. Look, it's a money-making operation. And when ESPN's goal used to try to be the daily time capsule of anything that happened that day in sports. That's what Sports Center was invented to be. Everything that happened in sports today, you're going to know about it if you just watch the next hour. And then that wasn't enough to sell every single segment. And the Coors Light Pick Six, where, instead of actually breaking down what happened, we're going to, ask this person 6 random things or whatever. It became a profit center. And when profits are prioritized above news, you get less news in the name of entertainment because entertainment keeps people around. Not bad news. Not bad news. No one wants to sit around and watch the bad news. They want to be entertained. Should we go with one more segment today in the local news about the local homeless problem, or this, cute puppy contest for the last 30 seconds of today? Oh, go with the cute puppies. Send everybody to bed happy. So
this guy says, remember the ESPN News channel? It still exists, doesn't it?
Yeah.
ESPN News, just some scroll and some people that have no personality at all, giving you just the basics. Or do they still use ESPN News? Do they still do that? I don't know if they do that. I'll say this though: ESPN does some really good things. What they did this year for the draft, with the draft featured, and then they do like little breakdowns of 5 or 6 players. I saw one on Blake Corum. There was one on Marvin Harrison. There was one on AD Mitchell. They took 10 or 15 Bo Nix. They took Michael Penix. They took the stars of the draft, and they basically sat down with them and did these the draft featured, and they tell their stories. I think that stuff is awesome. I mean, that stuff's awesome. But they just don't, they've all the stuff that's really good. They don't really, the backstory was an amazing series with Don Van Atta. They canceled that. Now it's just, I like Around the Horn. But you can tell the writing's changed, and it's
and look, the ESPN used to be there was an hour or 90-minute block where, this is a show about sports with the categories on the left-hand side of the channel. Now, this is a show about sports, except the categories are across the top third. Now, here's another story, show about sports, but now the categories are on the left-hand side of the channel. Like, they literally just bounced the categories that they were talking about all over. I mean, I remember when PTI changed the game. I was at ESPN working there when that show launched, and it just changed everything in terms of...
Oh, it's a great show.
Yeah.
But now some of these shows, they have the L something show. I mean, she's terrible. I mean, she says nothing. That show's awful. It's, the guy that we ran into, who was the guy that we ran into who had his own show at breakfast in Vegas?
Bomani Jones.
Bomani Jones had his own show. He's out of there.
Well, I don't know. Pablo Torre, who's doing some really, really interesting stuff now with Dan Le Batard. He got pushed out at ESPN.
Is he out? I just saw him the other day.
Well, I mean, I don't say he doesn't work for ESPN anymore. He works for Le Batard. He was
on Around the Horn the other day.
Okay, well, that's the thing. I think there's still like a little symbiotic relationship between Le Batard's folks and ESPN.
Then they brought in Dog on the morning show, and they're always painting him as the out of touch, middle-aged, older white guy. I don't know. It's the things, the argument. Their morning stuff is true garbage. All their morning stuff is just awful. But as far as I still like PTI, and they do some good things, and obviously they do a nice job on college football and games, and they still have a lot. It's just not like I find myself, going away from ESPN more than going there, seeking to get away from.
I watch it a billion times. I used to put on SportsCenter and watch it 9 times in a row. Not anymore. And and again, look, I love Fortenbaugh, good friend of mine, love Joe. But
it's a good show too.
You get any ESPN bets content up, like I'm not a bettor. I'm out. I don't know.
Well, that show might be before its time. It's right. Maybe a little bit before its time.
How about this? Back to why most people are here today watching us, Larry. By the way, please like and subscribe if you haven't.
They're not here for our ESPN breakdown analysis, no?
You guys want to talk about what ESPN used to be like 25 years ago? or Ricky Pearsall? Let's talk a little
back to the fabulous sports babe.
The babe.
Or we could talk more Pearsall. No, but I mean, the Pearsall thing is good. I mean, I like the move. I just would have liked, if they were going to go receiver in round 1, they would go for like a receiver that could be, an all-pro, big-time, I mean, not to say this guy's going to be productive. Like, I know he's going to be productive, so I don't want to say anything bad about Pearsall because I know he's going to be productive, but I also know he's going to be a complimentary player his whole career. And I was hoping for more than a complimentary receiver.
Well,
in the
here's
first
thing.
round. But I think he's a damn good complimentary receiver.
If he compliments Brock Purdy, he's going to find himself moving from that category of complimentary to heavily involved into the game plan, which is no longer, complimentary. You become paramount to what you're trying to do today.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's going to be productive. If you're sitting there going, well,
if he gets a shot to even hit the field, Kyle Shanahan has drafted guys that he's quickly been like, nah. I mean, it happens all the time. So I hope this is different. I hope, and again, I think that the Pearsall pick will come further into focus of making sense if they do a trade today for either Debo or Brandon Ayuk. And then it will feel like it fits a little bit more. We're one step into a 10-step draft. And the first step feels not like a misstep, but you went out on a little rocky ground that'll maybe become more stable as we see what develops next. I think to really evaluate what the Pearsall pick is, we need to see the rest of the draft and what they do.
Yeah. But even independent of the rest of the draft, you have a quarterback who throws better short and intermediate to guys who can get open in that short and intermediate, become valuable. The one thing I was hoping is I would hope that, Pearsall would give them a little bit more run after the catch. And he's not really a big run after the catch guy. But as far as keeping the chains moving, a reliable middle of the field threat that Brock Purdy can use to keep the chains moving, I think he could have incredible value. I think he could have more value than Juwan Jennings has right now, as far as being a chain mover guy who keeps the offense on the field, extends drives. This is going to be a hard when Purdy and this receiver are, in lockstep after a certain amount of games, they're going to be tough to stop because Purdy can throw with anticipation, and this guy's an outstanding route runner with great ball skills. So if you can say, hey, you know what, go 11 yards and give me an in cut, and I'm going to put it right there, and I'm going to throw it before you even break. This guy and Purdy should be able to put together the kind of timing that would make that nearly impossible to defend. Just think about the first half against the Rams in Week 18 when Puka Nacua was running these stop routes, just 5 yards turn around, and before you even turn around, Stafford's throwing the ball. It's like almost impossible to defend.
It was like Wentz throwing him the ball, right? It was Wentz.
It was actually Wentz. You're right.
Well, I mean, they were also trying to get
hard
a
to
rookie
defend.
catch record. Like,
right. And they were trying, and the Niners were saying no, but eventually they got it in the third quarter. But my point is just that 5 yard stop route. It's kind of like Goff with Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra and Goff are in such lockstep, and Amon-Ra can drive his legs like he's going to run a 20-yard pattern, cut it off at 10, cut in or out, and Goff can have already thrown the ball, and it's almost impossible to defend. And I kind of think, like, in some ways, this receiver is kind of like that. He's going to run his route. Purdy's going to make the throw. If they get in lockstep, which they should in a short amount of time, it could be very, very reliable as far as third down, move the chains. 3rd and 4, what are you going to do? Pearsall's going to run a little 6 yard out. Purdy's going to hit him, and the Niners are going to stay on the field. When he does that 5 times, 6 times, 10 times, 20 times, that's when I think Niner fans are going to really get their appreciation for Ricky Pearsall and the value that he brings.
Larry, let's get into a few of the starred chats.
Yeah, we got a bunch. Here we go. I'll let you do the reading.
Yeah, your eyes do feed. You still lose your contacts? What's the deal? Can we get you to an optometrist in West Portal, Larry?
Possibly. Blood Moon goes first.
All right. Trent Williams going to be pissed if Debo is traded.
Well,
Maybe.
There you go. Maybe.
Dan Sinderi says they are moving Debo for Commanders 2 and 3 or 4. You absorb the cat hit by signing Ayuk to a backloaded deal. Maybe that is the strategy today. Larry and I both agree the Commanders could absolutely be in play as a trade partner as the 49ers are considering how to approach the second round. So, yeah.
And who knows? Maybe you can turn a couple of those picks into the next Debo.
Blood Moon again. Bills have traded back by design to trade for Debo. Maybe.
That's interesting.
Maybe.
I'm not sure if I'd be in a rush to help the Bills because I think the Bills are one of the teams that potentially could stand between you and the Super Bowl. But
you'd think that the Bills would be done with being a rush to be a trade partner with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like
I know, but maybe they had no interest in that receiver.
Every playoff game. And I think that the Bills also traded the pick that became Patrick Mahomes to the Kansas City Chiefs.
They did.
Knock it off, Buffalo.
I know. What is Buffalo? What the hell? What the hell? Nathan Eds.
Trade Debo today for an early 2, draft an interior lineman, Frazier or Rosengarten, then package our original 2 and other picks to move up for a corner. Thoughts?
I like the plan. I like the thinking. I love Zach Frazier. I think he's an amazing player. Rosengarten, I think is a decent tackle, but
he's a good tackle at this point in the draft. First round, no.
I don't even know at this point. I kind of like Rosengarten more in round 3. He got destroyed by Jalen Harrell and the Michigan D-line in the second half of the Natty. I don't know. I personally, I got that fresh in my mind. I'm not a Rosengarten guy, but I know other people are. I know there's a connection to McCaffrey's dad. So maybe the Niners love Rosengarten, but to me, I like Javon Foster. I like Walter Rouse. I like Derek Greenfield. I like the big gigantic Texas kid who's very experienced. I even like the Yale kid. And like at this point, the Yale player is not a bad player. You're talking about a guy with huge wingspan, incredible at tenacity. He needs some development, but he could be your future left tackle. We got Ricky Williams here.
Ricky Williams, great running back at Texas. When do we go D-line? I need prospects to look at.
Michael Hall to me would be the ideal pick in the second round. Like if you said to me who are you wishing for in round 2? It's Michael Hall. Michael Hall ran 4.76 at 300 pounds. He was very, very productive. He led the nation this year in defensive tackle pass rush win rate. And he is has the fastest 40 time. I also like Braden Fisk in a rotation, but I like the strength of Michael Hall more. He's also young. He's 20. He doesn't turn 21, I think, until late this summer. So I think Michael Hall, who wore 51 for the Buckeyes, he's just so quick out of his stance that he made that Nugent center for Michigan just look absolutely like he just was just the slowest offensive lineman of all time.
Again, though, let's say it's Hall's rookie year, right? And he's on the field as a rotation piece in Kasurik's defensive line that had, Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott you traded for and paid that guy to come in. So he is another defensive tackle. And do you need another defensive tackle before you need to bring in a center to really push Brendel to either lock that job down or replace him?
You need both. You need both. You only had 3 sacks on Mahomes. You didn't rush Mahomes enough. Hargrave hasn't given you enough. I like Malik Collins, but I like Jordan Elliott, but I think they're stronger against the run than the pass. They need that super quick, whether it's Chris Jenkins, Michael Hall, Ruka Rororo. They need that inside tackle who has impact quickness. To me, if you get Michael Hall starts opposite Hargrave, and Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott come off the bench.
Okay. All right. Let's move along. What else we got?
We got another one here from
Anthony Lopes. Can see Debo getting traded to the Patriots for pick 35 and a 4th. Draft JPJ or Frazier, then get Washington or Corley at the end of the second.
Washington being Malik Washington, I think he's talking about. Now, that would be interesting if they could, once again, if they could, how many, you only have 6 wide receiver spots. So, you'd have to move Debo to go wide receiver again, probably. But Malik Washington is amazing. Corley's a really nice player. Yeah, I would go receiver definitely, once more, maybe even twice more. I think there's some day 3 receivers that are going to be steals as well. All right, we got this one here from Michael Alanis.
Does it seem to both of you that the Niners want to get cheaper and younger in the wide receiver room, like the Packers, who've had success with their young core? Troy Franklin, Jermaine Burton, Javon Baker. Yes, I mean,
those are good names.
Yeah, and getting cheaper has to be the sort of the way to go about business at all new Niners, right? I mean, the bill hits the
they're
table
paying Brock
Purdy.
$50 million.
The bill is going to hit the table for Brock Purdy and tilt the economy that they're thriving in right now to a totally different thing. And they do, again, they need to be totally focused on 2024, yet an eye on the future as well with that Purdy contract coming. So yeah, I think they're looking to get cheaper everywhere, as does every team in football during the draft.
Well, I think also learning from Detroit and Green Bay, there's nothing wrong with having a bevy of dynamic weapons, and that's what Green Bay has. That's kind of what Detroit has. I mean,
that's what the Niners got.
Yeah, but the Niners guys are getting older. Yeah. Kittle's older, Debo's older. They're getting older there, so they need to replenish. And they're younger guys, the Ronnie Bells and the Tay Martins and Chris Conley's a veteran, but the backups that they do have are not that dynamic. So they could use a little bit more dynamic playmakers at running back, wide receiver, tight end. I mean, they always say the fastest way to change your football team are change the guys who touch the football. So you're obviously not going to change Purdy. You're not going to change McCaffrey. But if you want to upgrade, the Niners offense, change the guys that touch the football. That helps you the fastest, and then improve that offensive line. I think they're going to have to make a couple really astute pickups. The guy that I really believe is going to be on their radar on the offensive line is Walter Rouse. He started at Stanford. He transferred to Oklahoma. He played opposite Tyler Guyton this year. He led the country in pass block win rate. He was really dominant as a run blocker. I think he's a sleeper. I think he's a 5th round sleeper, Walter Rouse. Okay, do we get that one?
Hold on. Let me I clicked out for just a second. Yeah, Ricky Williams says, Ricky again coming in. By the way, Ricky Pearsall is a Ricky without an E. This is Ricky with an E.
Gotcha.
R-I-C-K-Y. This is clearly a Debo replacement next year. Brock needs hands and routes, not a running back at receiver anymore. Debo and BA will stay one last ride.
There you go. That's his thought. Ricky's coming back. He's emptying the clip.
Thank you, Ricky. How was the Washington pick? Any thoughts? What, Jaden Daniels?
Going with Jaden Daniels. I kind of like Jaden Daniels. I said at the beginning of the draft, the quarterbacks, I don't believe in Caleb, don't believe in May, don't believe in Nix, don't believe in McCarthy, do believe in Penix, do believe in Jaden Daniels. That's where I'm at. This guy won the Heisman Trophy. He's consistently improved. He started at ASU. If you had told me this guy that I was watching at ASU a couple of years ago was going to be the 2nd pick in the draft, I never would have believed it. But he went to LSU and got a whole lot better and just a whole lot more refined. So I really like Jalen Daniels.
Just in terms of another lineman that the Niners could take a look at, day 2, day 3, round 2, round 3, Kingsley Sumatea from BYU. I know that's a player you've been talking about quite a bit.
I don't like him as a run blocker. So I like him as a pass protector. I don't like him as a run blocker. So he's kind of down my list. I mean, he's athletic for sure. But when you watch the film, it's like he doesn't do much as a run blocker, and I need more from him. So I would defer to other guys, but he'll probably go right away in round 2. We have Mark Graves, his member for 2 months.
22 months. Deuce.
22 months.
22 minutes. That's good. It's a golf clap.
22 months. Yeah, absolutely.
Good job, Mark. Thank you very much. Larry and Damon, what is the beer of choice today? Looking forward to the show later. Thanks for all the content. Well, thank you, Mark. Again, it's a great Irish bar.
They
pull a nice Guinness, I will be drinking the Guinness.
Oh, really? You're going to go Guinness?
Yes.
That's a little on the dark side. I'm gonna. That's a little heavy.
My channel, Larry. So is my channel.
But it's a little heavy for 4:00 in the afternoon. Guinness.
Not for me. To me, do you know that there are less calories in a Guinness than there are in a Coors Light?
Well, I'm not worried about the calories as much. I don't like the thickness and the weight of a Guinness at 4:00. But that's just me. I'm going. Tolbert turned me on to Pliny the Elder. If I can get Pliny the Elder in the bottle, I'll pay a little more for Pliny the Elder.
So you want your bougie Northern California?
I like a good. I mean, have you had a Pliny?
I have. Yeah, it's just
pretty damn good beer. It's a pretty damn good beer.
It's a beer.
I mean, it's kind of like a Sam Adams with a little bit more there, like a little bit richer, better version of Sam Adams. I used to love like Sierra Nevada, like a pale ale Sierra Nevada, but that's a little bit more bitter. The Pliny the Elder is kind of in that vein, I think, but just smoother.
I used to be like an IPA guy, and then all of a sudden, like I'll have one IPA, but after that, I feel like I'm drinking like a Glade plug-in. Like it just gets too air freshenery for me. Like it tastes like bathroom soap after a while for an IPA. So maybe one IPA throughout the day.
It's a little bitter.
Yeah. Soapy taste. All right, what else we got? Thank you very much, though, Mark. Mark, a member for 22 months. That is supporting your channel, Larry, big time. Marcus Mason, who I believe we saw quite a bit last night while we were going live with Dan. Don't judge rookie by it.
By the way, great show last night with Dan, you and Dan. That was a very, very highly viewed extravaganza.
Nice job. By the way, speaking of highly viewed extravaganzas, yesterday was the single most watched day in the history of my channel. And
there's a lot of people who love the draft, man.
Yeah. I also got this this boxing short that is just going through the roof right now.
There you go. The international market. You've tapped into the international market.
Oh, you should see some of the comments in my chat. It'd be like, "Donde está hermano Bruce?" I'm like, "Thank you." Don't judge Ricky by his catches. He may only catch 50 balls on 70 targets, but it's the space he'll create on the other 130 routes that he's not targeted that'll come into play. And look, we all know that Shanahan run guys open. He runs guys open with precise routes, and what is covered over here by definition can't be covered over there at the same time. And yeah, will it all fit together? But again, Marcus, my only hesitation is, how many routes will he be out there for?
Well, if you don't have Deebo Samuel, he might be your starter.
Exactly. So let's see where this goes.
But there's also maybe Tyler Boyd. There's other receivers. You're going to have to turn things over. Change is inevitable. I'm a big Deebo guy, but if they can find a couple of day 2 picks for Deebo, man, I think I would definitely do it, because we all know their cap situation is real. It's not like, oh, you're just talking about this cap situation so you can run Deebo out of town. No. The cap situation's real. They're going to pay their quarterback a ton.
Right. Their quarterback
got to make it work.
A $49 million raise next year.
Yeah. I mean, if they can get a 2 and a 3 for Deebo, I would be shocked by that. But if they can, do it. Do it. And
what if it was only a 2, Larry? What if Deebo only got you back into the second round once? That's it.
I would do it because of the cap. Because second round picks can be the best players on your team. So I would absolutely do it. And I like the fact that the 49ers are kind of evolving here. It's like they didn't trust Garoppolo to throw it. And, then you had Deebo underneath and a lot of handoffs and stuff close to the line of scrimmage. Now you got a quarterback that actually can throw guys open. And so now it's like, hey, get him some receivers who can make some plays in the short and intermediate area with premier ball skills, and watch Purdy just feast. And, I'm eager to see what it looks like. I think Purdy to Pearsall could be a very, very nice combination over time.
Moving on. What else we got in the chat?
We got this one
from
Elanta
3. What are the chances Debo gets moved tonight? 50%?
I would say it's over 50%. That would be my
55%
guess.
55% maybe?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 75%, but I think it's a good 65%. What do you think?
I think you're way off. I think it's 62.5%, Larry.
You're going under.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be a tough choice. And it's also going to be a full-on reversal of what they just told everybody. You know, they just told everybody, Debo ain't included. Now you're telling me he is? Funny way to go about doing business. Maybe you don't answer so many questions so vividly next time around. I'm not trying to, repress interesting press conferences, but this is what happens when you start writing checks with your mouth that reality might not cash. So let's see what happens. I don't think it's out of Debo or Ayuk. It feels like one of those guys might get moved today. It does.
But I mean, the fans have spoken. They want to keep Ayuk and move Debo. No doubt, right? I mean, I feel confident when I say that.
I would say the same thing.
Yeah.
From a football strategy standpoint, who is the better wide receiver? That's it. We're not talking about the other things. Debo is the better wide receiver than Ayuk the better wide receiver than Debo Samuel.
And with a better future, you would think.
Men drink Jim Beam. Beer is for horses. Well, I'm a brown liquor connoisseur myself, and you can do a lot better than Jim Beam, but it's a fine whiskey.
And what's wrong? I'll drink whatever give me what Secretariat's drinking. I'll
Again, Elanta saying men drink Jim Beam. What else we got?
Well, look at that. He didn't just want to say it once. He wanted to say it twice.
Well, as long as you pay to say it twice. I can tell you this right now. Super chat later today is a good way to buy me and Larry a beer. You want to support the channel? Buy us a beer a little bit later with the super chat today. We'll both be on. We'll both be streaming.
What's the food of choice at the Dubliner? I mean, is there
no food? You get whatever Uber Eats, or you want to walk down the block.
It's just a straight bar.
Yeah, it's a bar.
There's no like, hey, I'll get some side of this or side of that.
I don't think so.
Just a bar, just a straight on bar.
It's an Irish bar / sports bar / neighborhood bar that'll let you bring in anything and eat it right there at the bar. I'm pretty sure. So
really, wow. Yeah. Maybe it will. Have you had any confirmations, or any of the guys who went to the Plus Mania going to be going to this? Because we did go on a big pizza run on Mission Street with Big Dan and Smiley Dan.
Here's the thing. So
it's pretty good pizza too. Pretty good pie. Smiley Dan shared.
I'm not doing an 11 o'clock show. It would be late if I were. We're already in it right now. So I'm not doing You
are doing an 11 o'clock show. It's funny.
Yeah, right. But it's not a full-on FOMO Friday over on Damon Bruce.
I'm not sitting in today with Chase Sr. at 10:45. I guess that's passed.
Was that supposed to happen?
Well, Chase and I have been doing every Friday, but Chase sent me a text today saying that he's super packed with what he's got going around the draft and begged out. And I said, no sweat. We'll do a different day.
All right.
But yeah, Chase is good. He had kind of the same reaction, like a little bit surprising, a little bit low end, a little, he's like, and there are other people who are like, hey, I like the player, but I don't like the pick, which means, what do you mean?
Don't like the fit,
or you like the player, but you don't like him on the Niners, or you like the player. I like the player, but I like fun players, not necessarily effective players. This guy's more of an effective player.
I like the player if he plays.
If he's Cooper Kupp, I'm going to love him.
Right. If he's another doesn't make the field under Kyle Shanahan in year one, then it feels like a little bit of a wasted opportunity in a year where you're trying to win a Super Bowl.
I just think that I can see this guy, freeing himself up with a great move, and then the athletes in the NFL on the perimeter kind of closing down that space and hitting him, and him not getting away for any kind of run after the catch. And so I see kind of a guy who can make contested catches and will make some difficult catches and will move the chains, but I don't see any kind of run after the catch ability there. And that kind of makes them less dynamic, kind of puts it more on Purdy to drive the ball down the field. If you're, now you throw it to Debo 5 yards in, or hand it to him and he makes a 20-yard run. This is the kind of guy that's going to catch a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, but he's going to get tackled right there. So you're not going to get that run after the catch. So it's just a different kind of a player. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's an effective chain mover, very reliable, but he's not going to give you that dynamic run after the catch that Niner fans are kind of been accustomed to.
That Kyle Shanahan has grown accustomed to.
Yeah, pretty much. We also have this one.
Biggest need today from Harold McAllister: O-line, D-line, cornerback. I mean, you could prioritize all three, but to me, it's O-line. If the first pick, whatever
need is interesting. I mean, what's immediate need or future need?
I keep on going back to what Brian Baldinger said on your channel. You cannot have a great offensive line without a great center. Yeah. I think Jake Brendel's a good center.
Good point.
And if you want a great offensive line, you need to replace him. And protecting Brock Purdy has to be now number one. That ain't fucking Brian Hoyer back there anymore. You got to protect this guy.
I'll tell you, a couple nice picks for the Niners would be if they could get a Debo trade done, get a high second, get Zach Frazier, and then maybe take the Yale tackle, not necessarily at the end of round 2, but maybe in round 3. Because the Yale tackle definitely has big upside. Like, he could be the replacement for Trent Williams. Huge wingspan, very smart, very aggressive, very tenacious. There's a lot to like there, but the level of competition, and he needs to be coached up, and there's nuances to offensive line play that this guy needs to be, he needs to be a good coach. Now, they do have a good offensive line coach, but that guy, Karan Amageji, if you could get him in round 3 and plug him in, I really love Javon Foster as a tackle. To me, that's one of the great value picks in this draft. If I could go, if I could say realistically, what would you want realistically? If I could trade Debo and get a high second and get Zach Frazier, then take Michael Hall at the end of round 2 with their real round 2 pick, and then come back in round 3 and go with Amageji, and then maybe even or Javon Foster in round 3. That's how I'd play it. Frazier, Michael Hall, Javon Foster, Frazier, Michael Hall, Karan Amageji. That's how I'd like to see. And as far as corner goes, I do like a lot of corners in this draft that will be there in round 2. But man, there's some guys. Willie Drew from Virginia State is going to be a day 3 corner. I love Willie Drew. I think he's a tremendous corner. And I think there's good corner depth. I mean, really good corner depth. I was looking at the list. I saw at least 6 or 7 NFL, going to make the roster kind of corners that are going to be there 6th round, 7th round, day 3. So, some of them are small school guys, Mikey Victor, Alabama State, guys like that, Willie Drew, Virginia State.
Look, Max Melton is there, and he's still.
Max Melton, if they took Max Melton in with their high second, I'd be fine with that too. He's a true number 1 corner.
The corner out of Kentucky, I think, is an option there for them.
Yeah, he's good too. Andrew Phillips.
Yeah. So
I would say, but if you say the biggest need, well, the O-line for long term. But like right now, I think they could start Brendel Feliciano or Brendel Burford at center guard, and they could start Colton McKivitz, and I don't think it would be a disaster. I kind of think D-line for that special pass rusher is actually kind of the number 1 need. But Max, more than anything, if you said, what do they really need? They need to hit. They need to get great players, whether that great player is an O-lineman, a D-lineman, a corner, a tight end, a safety. They need great players.
They need a player. I mean, they need someone who's playing in his rookie year.
Great players.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, it could be any number of positions, but I'd rather have the best tackle, defensive tackle, than the 12th best offensive tackle that could be good in 3 years. I mean, go get great players and then make it all work. But yeah, That's how I kind of see it.
So there you go, Harold. Thank you so much for the super chat. Anything else there, Larry? We emptied the bucket.
No, I think that's pretty much it. I do, I did look up a ton of info last night on Peol, and there's a lot to like there. I mean, there really is. I mean, he's tough, he's versatile. You can line him up outside, you can line up in the slot. The one thing that I really kind of liked about him that's kind of very veteran is that he will change it up on the defender. So he's got a whole arsenal of different releases. He'll release fast, he'll release slower. He knows how to he doesn't round off his routes.
Change his speed in the route.
He's got good breaks. He understands how to shield the defender. I mean, he's very veteran. This guy has spent a lot of time. He's really a strong force over the middle of the field in traffic. This is not a guy who's worried about running across the middle of the field. You can see the intelligence. He's a smart player. He understands what the defensive zones look like. He understands how to run to the daylight. He understands how to sit in the soft spot. I think he's really, really dangerous against zone. I'm a little concerned about his ability to separate against man and to sometimes escape the jam. Where he's going to be struggling the most is when you get right up on the line of scrimmage and challenge him right at the line with physicality and speed. If you do that, I think he's really challenged, and you might be able to box him up a little bit. But I love his ability to win at the catch point. I love the nuances that he has in his game, and it's not like adding a rookie receiver. It's like adding a veteran receiver, and that's nice because you have a guy that I think he should be able to step in and make plays right away.
I think we got, if I'm counting just quickly here, in the first round, 23 of the 32 picks were offensive side of the ball. Look for round 2 to be an early run on defenders.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see an awful lot of defense defining rounds 2 and 3 here. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes to get to our first running back off the board. I love
Blake Corum.
I know you do.
Blake Corum.
I know you do. But man, it should be a really good day, and we invite everyone. And if you're in San Francisco today, hop on Muni and go right through the West Portal Tunnel and come on out to the other side of West Portal. Basically, the Dubliner is on the south side of West Portal. And we hope you come on out. It would be great to see you today. And thanks so much for watching. I mean, we have recapped, we have set it up, and obviously nothing happens until the 49ers make a decision to do one of the bigger draft day trades they will ever be involved in if they really do let go one of their starting wide receivers right in the middle or at the end of their Super Bowl window. It would be an interesting way to go about doing business, but it might be the lever available to them that they pull. So let's see. It's going to be a big day, Larry. There's no doubt. The 49ers are going to look like a much different football team when the sun sets tonight than they do right now. So thanks for joining us for Wake Up. I know that Trent Baalke probably has been watching this the entire time, looking to find ACL value on day 2, Larry.
It's so funny. Everybody's sitting there saying, I'm going to trade for Ayuk. Old Trent Baalke can't pick wide receivers. I've heard that, Damon. I've heard that, Lowry. And let me just say this. I took Brian Thomas Jr., and I feel very confident that Brian Thomas Jr. is a player. And this guy's had his injuries in the past, which is, what attracted me to him. But I don't know that I'll be trading for Ayuk. I doubt I'll be trading for Debo. But I got Brian Thomas Jr. And Coach and I think that Trevor's going to have a bust-out year.
And I told Tate and I told Tom, I was telling Agnew too, you got to keep an eye on Mike Silver. Mike Silver's saying that there could be something that happens today. Mike Silver's a very dialed-in guy. All those years at Sports Illustrated, he's gotten a lot of up-close personal things. I've seen Mike Silver talking to, Monday Night Football. I've seen Mike Silver in a lot of places. You might want to keep an eye on the information that he's got to share with you today. He's very dialed in, like an Amicis.
Krug, I love the fact that you've got your own bookie, and I was wondering, my guy, I don't have him anymore. Can I use your guy? Well, Ralph, my guy does pay. That's great. That's great that he pays. But Ralph, my guy also collects. Oh, I don't. What does that mean? I don't want him to do damage to the Miata. Can we just maybe we can meet in public at maybe in Amici's, maybe on Union Street. I'll buy him I'm a paisan. Maybe he's a paisan. I'll buy him a pie. We'll have some lemon pepper wings. I'll bring Tate. I'll bring Tommy. Well, I'll look at the menu. I'll tell Tom pick one. Pick one.